This is the One Up Network. Welcome to a very special edition of One Up Yours podcast. It's the 1 year anniversary of calling it the One Up Yours podcast.
The 1 year of our naming.
The 1 year of our naming, which ironically was Andrew and I sitting there going, what the hell are we going to call this podcast now that we're actually putting time and effort into it? And me going, I know what we'll call it. We'll call it One Up Yours. And Andrew looks at me and goes, dude, you totally cannot do that. That will never work. Huh. Occasionally.
What? A dick joke or a fuck you joke's not going to work in radio?
I know,
what?
Amazing. Occasionally I am right about something. Anyway, it's January the 19th, an awesome Friday. The Fivesome is here. Andrew over there on the, I got in trouble for Wheels of Steel, so I don't know, just on the boards.
Big board. That's quite a board.
Running the big boards. Yeah, he has the Soundcraft board working there. We have Shane in his Bully t-shirt ready to roll.
Special guest.
Shut up.
Special guest, my ass.
A year ago, I wasn't even on the show.
That's well. So the year anniversary, just to be straight, is of the naming. But I mean, the Fivesome we're pretty solid now. I'd say we're pretty solid.
There'll probably be a celebration.
You and I struggled with a number of others before we settled on our regulars.
I can't tell you how glad I am that you guys helped me through it. It was so hard to bring this show along. I mean,
Luke was on the show like his first day at work.
Was it your first day?
No, well, my first day at work was the Friday everyone got back from GDC, and I just came and sat and listened.
I barely knew you. I thought you were some weirdo.
And
that part hasn't changed.
Yeah.
He was very quiet back then. Would you believe it? When we interviewed Luke, we took him to Morton Steakhouse. It was me, Sam Kennedy, and Milky, and we interviewed him.
And I was there too, by the way. I know that I was just sitting there collecting.
And there was some other guy. I don't remember who it was. Whoever he was, he was wrong about everything that he said, and he was making up words. And after the dinner, Sam pulled me aside while we were waiting for a cab and waiting for the cars afterwards, and he was like, I don't know. I mean, he seems really good, but I'm worried he might be a bit quiet.
Too shy.
So, actually, just to also fix that part, it was Milky that did that part.
No, it was Sam that I spoke to. Thanks, Garnet.
No, it was Milky who said he was too quiet.
I just want to clarify.
No, Milky thought he was gay.
No, it was Sam who thought he was gay.
Okay, let's fix a couple things.
Dude, seriously.
Sam hoped. Milky said, and I was just being faux humble.
You were reining it back until you were in.
Yeah.
And at which point you let it all loose.
That's right. He came straight out of the closet. Ba-boom.
Well, it's like we're back in April. I think that'll be a theme for the show, going back in time.
Oh, yes. Well, definitely. We can do that on What You've Been Playing because we're going to follow the regular schedule, of course.
Of course.
Have to follow the normal rundown. We're going to do What You've Been Playing in the first segment. We have John with stuff off of the message boards at boards.oneup.com. In the second segment, we're going to take a look at what was current gen, is now last gen. Talk about how long is the PlayStation 2 going to be able to play Lazarus and just live on and on and on. And then the third segment, the epic news blast.
Hang on a second. Lazarus was the dude who died and rose from the grave.
You're thinking Methuselah.
Thank you.
That is who I was thinking. Awesome. Thank you.
Way to team up, Midwest Christians.
How many minutes are we in?
A lot. When I'm
4 minutes and he's been wrong 2-3 times already.
And when I'm correcting you on biblical stuff,
yeah. Well, you're from Kentucky.
I am from the Bible Belt.
He was born with biblicality.
It's true.
Is that like tacticality?
That is exactly like tacticality.
Didn't we debate on whether that was a word? Like
it's not.
20 minutes
Let's
ago?
move on.
All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about some games.
Let's.
You want to tell me what you've been playing?
Well, we just finished up a really tumultuous deadline.
Tumultuous deadline.
I haven't had a lot of time to play new stuff, but I was reviewing Lunar Nights, which I mentioned last week. I got further into it. I really enjoyed it. It's, we talked about it's the sequel to the Bowtie games, but Konami is pitching it as a new franchise, but it really is the sequel. And yeah, it's like a Zelda meets Metal Gear meets a space shooter. It's really good.
Zelda
meets Metal Gear
and a space shooter.
It's a space shooter.
So you were hype on this game. I remember you being hype on this game even like back in preview days when you were like, man, I love Bowtie. Right. You're going to love this game.
Yeah, because everyone slept on Bowtie 1 and 2. Like, even huge Metal Gear fans and Zelda fans like Mark McDonald, I'd be like, dude, play Bowtie. And he never...
Wait. Were you just calling out Mark?
I was calling out Mark because I've told him to play Bowtie for 3 years.
This was the game you were talking to Ryan Payton about.
Yeah, Ryan Payton is the producer on this game.
Right.
And everyone at this table should play it. It's quite good.
Platform?
DS.
Do you still have to collect light?
One of my favorites.
No, you don't have to collect light. But if you have one of the old Bowtie games, you can actually use it as a solar cell to give you extra tanks of power. So it's just like a super bonus if you do have those games. It makes it much easier. So in addition to that, I've been playing VF5 because I need to train to defeat Milky. And Milky actually had apparently some world champion from Korea in our office yesterday to train him.
I was watching him play last night, dude.
Yeah, he was
this
owning
guy
everybody.
is sick.
But I told Milky, not going to help you out, man.
Dude, it is so going to help him. This guy was sick.
We'll see, because I'm pretty good, I must say.
That's not what I heard from. That's not what I heard from the Milkman.
Office.
From the office, yeah.
People say things that aren't true.
All I'm gonna say is, dude, if you want to represent, you better represent, because Milky is like not just wanting to beat you a little bit. He is out to humiliate you.
We're planning some sort of televised tournament in the future, so you'll be able to see my performance.
Fair warning.
Live on the One Up Show.
Fair warning. He's
Televised.
He's putting in the time. If you're not putting in the stick time,
Well, the sticks aren't in yet, but as soon as they come in, I'll
things
switch to
could
the
happen.
Shane's putting in plenty of stick time, Garnet.
Oh, see how we serve him up right there? Oh, like,
Well, John, see, you said it, and John looked at me like, come on, do it.
yep.
Do it.
Yep. Crank on that. Just turn on that pitch.
But I gotta say, the biggest thing I did this week in the What's You Been Playing front is we got one copy of Hotel Dusk Room 215, a retail copy yesterday, and everybody wants to play this game ever since EGM reviewed it and gave it these really high scores. And I just opened the box. Everyone's like, give this to me. Everyone at EGM is fighting for it. John Davison walks by, the big head honcho. I'm like, hey, John, this is for you.
Wow, it must be getting close to raise time, huh, Shane?
Maybe.
Hey, wouldn't be the first to say it's good to be
did you
king.
need anything done for your car? I know you had that accident with the shrimp.
I'll think about that.
So how'd that turn out for you, though, John?
What?
The Hotel Dusk?
I'm liking it very much. I haven't put it down since you gave it to me, actually. I've been sort of sneaking it in when I should have been doing other things.
Sometimes it's the right time to sneak it in.
You do. You have to sneak it in sometimes, late at night, early in the morning.
She says, like, no, and you're like, no means yes.
Not when you're married.
No means no. Then.
No really means no.
It depends on whether she wakes up or not.
It is very good, though. I'm going to completely ignore you talking about me having sex with my wife and talk about Hotel Dusk instead.
I was talking about playing video games. If you don't wake her up, it doesn't bother her.
My question is, how are the graphics? I know, we know the style looks cool, but is it animated well? Does it move?
It's not. It's animated a lot like that Aha video. Aha.
Take on me.
Take on me.
No, the other Aha video.
That's right. The other one. Hey, we have listeners who might not even know who the hell Aha was.
Aha is really big in Europe.
So it's got a.
So is Nina.
I'm going to stab you with this pen.
I'm looking forward to it.
Garnet sponsored the show with Glenn Fittich today.
Pray continue, John.
So it's actually a mix of art styles, which I really didn't know what to expect, and I thought it would be a very flat point and click thing where you're pointing at the screen and. The way you would expect, like Phoenix Wright. Yeah. But it has the Aha video characters, which are usually black and white, and they have sort of the squiggly lines, and they're slightly animated. But then there's also it's got a 3D engine, so you navigate around the environment by moving your finger or the stylus on a map to move around the map, and then in the window, because you hold the DS like a book, like you do in Brain Age, rather than the normal way. So the window on the left is the 3D view as you're walking around, and you navigate with the map and manage everything. And then when you interact with people, it puts stuff over the 3D engine. And then when you're interacting with objects, you can kind of scroll around and stuff. So it's doing a lot of interesting stuff with the art, and the writing seems really good. But a lot of it is almost like being in a kind of a story. What the hell was that?
That was Garnet. Garnet had like a mouth fart. Kind of smells too. What was it? What'd you have for lunch? Burgers? God. Hey, can we get a bigger studio? Because I was really getting into listening to John. I was sort of like, I was going to my happy place.
Yeah, John was like painting a picture.
Of Hotel. Anyway,
with words, and Garnet starts to mouth.
Is there any voice acting, or is it
no voice acting? It's all written. It's very sort of noir detective.
Did you guys green room this? All right, Letterman.
He's prepping me with questions.
Well, I'm curious because I gave my copy away.
Mike Donoghue gave this game 10 out of 10.
Right.
So I mean, it comes out Tuesday.
It does come out Tuesday, and Nintendo has done a very poor job marketing it. The people don't even know what it is. I've had like since our review came out, like 10 of my friends have sent me messages like, "Hey, what is this game? Where is it? Is it out?" Like Nintendo doesn't talk about it.
Nintendo's not talked about it. I mean, they were disappointed with Elite Beat Agents, which they did some pre-awareness on, and at least with EBA. the attraction is obvious. I mean, it's a rhythm game. It's very simple.
Well,
it's wacky.
And what's weird is they were disappointed with what I consider to be pretty good sales for EVA, like for what it is.
But the problem with Hotel Dusk is they've not really said what it is. A lot of people that have heard of it, and there doesn't seem to be many, know it's some kind of point-and-click adventure, but they don't know anything about it. When you see the box and the artwork and everything, it's a really lousy.
The box is lousy.
Like, really, you know the way bad third-party DS games would just have dreary art and awful font? It just doesn't look very attractive. There's nothing to make you want to pick it up. But it's... I mean, right now, it's definitely my favorite game I've played on DS.
How available will it be, you think, on Tuesday?
I don't think it's going to be very available at all. Like, I've heard reports that, an EB will only be getting 2 copies or something.
Yeah, see, that's the type.
The buyers didn't think it would be a hot item, so no one bought it. So odds are it's going to be really hard to find initially.
Anyone that is looking for... We talked a little bit about point-and-click adventures last week, and we mentioned this briefly, but, I mean, it really is what point-and-click adventures should be now. And the way that you interact with people and objects, they'll hand you things and you grab things out of their hand, and the way that you move things around, it's a lot like some of the Wii stuff.
I was going to say,
that
sort of like what you're describing sounds like the sort of experience that would work really well on the Wii, where you'd be your hand in the space, like I've talked about before. And
you go up to a door and you knock on the door and you try and wiggle the handle, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Well, you missed Garnet making like a I'm dying or falling asleep face over there.
No, I wasn't.
Garnet gave Prey an 8.
Would you rather talk about maybe like walking out of a vagina with an explosion? Is that what you want to hear about?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, I'm down with that.
You'd rather hear about birth?
Prey, you walk out of vaginas. You ever play it?
Anyway, I think...
No, you haven't either, though.
Hotel Dusk, I think, probably won't sell very well at first, but I think a lot of people will be talking about it.
That's kind of what happened with Phoenix Wright and Trauma Center. Word of mouth catches up.
He was also signed in playing Lost Planet, by the way.
Oh, yeah, Lost Planet.
Yeah, no, he was. He totally was.
Yeah, that game has a really good box, though.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. Like the marketing and the packaging and everything for Lost Planet, 9 out of 10. Gameplay, 5.
I put that in.
They shipped 1 million copies.
Moaning about it the whole time.
Yeah, you were like when I bumped into you on Monday, you were pissed.
Pissed me off.
What were you so pissed about?
It's like Capcom, again, repeating Dead Rising. It's like they forgot how to make games.
There are no zombies in that game.
We're going to drop you in a pit with something, and you have to shoot its ass until we let you out. And, we're going to do something, and you don't have to do it. We're not going to tell you what to do. You just have to work it out. And it's like...
And it's punitive.
Yeah, and it's punitive all the way through. And it's like, you have to die to find out what to do. And, I mean, it looks beautiful, but I think the design's lousy.
Well, Andrew and I talked over the weekend because he was like, I'm so fucking sick of Lost Planet on IM. And I was like, oh, well, what's troubling you? Why don't you like this game? Everyone.
In the rational, calm way that you tend to do that.
Yeah, you're his gaming therapist now?
A little bit, yeah. I try to be.
I'm telling you, I didn't realize this was going to be a complete gang up. I need Mark McDonald here because both he and I liked the game. And we enjoyed the adventure part of it. Look, the boss battles, everyone has knocked the boss battles.
But didn't Mark also convince himself he liked Chrome Hounds?
No, he didn't.
No, that was Che.
Oh, that was Che.
That was Che, who's, by the way, is also like all over in love with Lost Planet. He loves the ice planet. He's like all over that thing.
I'm like, dude, it's Earth.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Spoiler alert.
Again.
Piss people off for the second time.
Luke loves to do that, doesn't he? He totally loves
so do you think that the public's opinion is going to shift on Lost Planet once it's not the hottest thing anymore? Everybody's going, oh, yeah.
It's going to be the hottest thing for a little while.
No, I think that journalists are overly critical. I think you guys are like way down on it because you've played boss battles like that. You know how tired and lame that part of the gameplay is, and you're not enjoying the rest of it because the bad part of the design is that the fun part is just used as a vehicle to get to the bad part. They think the Capcom or the designers felt like the whole cool part of this game is these great boss battles because they're so fantastic and you're gonna love them, and that's the shit of the game.
But like Greg Ford, who gave it the 6.5 on 1UP and EGM, his complaint wasn't the boss battles. He didn't like the mech sections. He thought it was kind of like a bait and switch. Like you think you're getting this game where you're like a dude shooting stuff on this planet, and instead it turns into kind of a slow-paced mech game, and that is not what
he got ridden by two-legged technologies.
And I disagree. I thought the mech part was pretty fun too, and I think the online part in team play is fairly fun. As deathmatch, I mean, it's not a good deathmatch game at all. But the team play modes are very fun. Anyway,
have you played it? I've not played it online.
I haven't played it online. I haven't hooked up my my 360 again since I brought it to the office for the purported Halo night that never happened.
Wait, the Halo night never happened?
Yeah, it's like you guys were all at CES and there just wasn't enough people to drum up support, so it just never happened. It's fine. Whatever.
That's kind of shame.
So what have you two been playing?
Garnet, go ahead. You can lead the way. I know what you've been playing.
Some boring PC game? Are you playing some RTS? What are you playing?
Well, after promising that I wasn't going to do this, I let Skip draw me back into the web of World of Warcraft. So, yeah.
Have you reached level 70 yet, like that French dude?
No, that was crazy.
28 hours.
Man, come on.
Oh, you just shot his news.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
man.
I'm so sorry.
It's cool. I'll just piece for the third segment. Go ahead, Garnet. Talk about paladins and how rigged they
I
are.
watched Skip playing this the other day, and all he did was walk.
that is kind of World of Warcraft.
He was going for a walk through a forest, and we were talking for like 15 minutes, and that was all he was doing. That looks awesome.
It is pretty
Where do
awesome.
I sign up?
8 million Forest Walkers can't be wrong, John.
Well, 8 million subscriptions. Yeah, how many still play? Don't know.
That's a good point.
That's not a number they released.
And I'll tell
Are
you,
you trying to cast doubt on the success of World of Warcraft,
I'm
Luke?
just saying it's.
I think it's kind of a flop,
the
says
actual
Luke
number of
Smith.
players, playing concurrently is not 8 million.
Are you a World of Warcraft fan?
I love World of Warcraft. Loved.
Fast tense.
Well, I mean, maybe I patched today, and maybe I'm installing Burning Crusade.
And maybe you'll be on level
and
70
maybe you
by
were
tomorrow.
talking at lunch about wondering if you still had it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I think that the raid environment could use me.
Scarab Lord.
I'm the Scarab Lord.
I think they're drawing you back in.
You do get really drawn in by your friends. I mean, this is like typical of any MMO, is that if you have friends who are playing it, that's a whole other thing than just the game itself. There's the game itself, and then there's the communal aspect of playing it. If Andrew's going to play it, if other folks who we enjoy playing with are going to play it, I'll play it. As far as a single-player game, I mean, my opinion about World of Warcraft has not changed any. Playing that game solo is no longer remotely interesting to me. I'll do it to the extent that I need to make my character a level so I can play with the other guys. But beyond that, I'm not interested in going
like a job.
That it is very job-like in that regard. Yeah,
It's funny, a lot of
and it's
people.
pretty similar. And whatever they want to say, the new areas still play like the old areas, except for one thing. I think they've actually gotten lazier in their leveling design, because the Draenei, when you leave the first area, has this gap where you're like suddenly, wait, what am I supposed to do next? And there's like a half level of wandering around and just pure grinding crap to open up the next quests. It's really stupid.
I do think there's going to be an influx of new players. Like a lot of us at EGM, we got sent copies by Blizzard, and like Shu, who came by, he was like, "Should I start playing this?" And we're all like, "No, don't start playing this," because he has like a stack of games he wants to play right now that he hasn't played. And we're like, if you start this, you're not going to play any other games. So, but I think there will be an influx of new blood.
You really.
I don't know, because
This is an odd expansion pack to bring in new blood.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like an expansion pack that's necessarily friendly to bringing in new players and to facilitating new players, other than, maybe it's an expansion pack that gets people playing the game again, and that's that communal element
Right.
is what will draw players back in again. I think that's the sort of way that you think. Like Shu, part of the reason he probably wants to play is because right now there's like the WoW blog.
Everyone's talking about it.
Did you walk around the floor and you could hear looting noises from everywhere on the floor?
Yeah, I mean, you're hearing people playing this game and people, linking items and stuff in email. I mean, it's, it is sort of the new thing.
I mean, it is the second coming of WoW. I think. In terms of media exposure and people talking about WoW.
So let me ask you a question, Luke, because you're a big player on it. Are you disappointed at all that there's no new classes?
No, I'm not disappointed.
Really?
There's actually an interview that was up this week where one of the developers said that there will be new classes.
I'm sure there will be at some point. They just use that for another opportunity to print money.
Well, adding the classes to each side, basically removing the faction difference is sort of like their big change.
And I'll call them out right now. I think that is the cheapest, stupidest dilution of the game ever.
You're playing at Paladin, you know how rigged they are.
They are fucking rigged. It is the dumbest thing ever. I'm like 2.5 levels below Andrew today, and I'm like,
that would be levels 8 and 10, just for reference.
Right. Well, so it doesn't matter. I mean, we're very low level, which usually is like the most boring, struggling part of the game. And I'm like running around in front of the party, just killing and tanking everything
so
without difficulty.
The game is still unbalanced.
Well, both sides have this totally rigged class now, so it's okay.
No.
Right. I think
So it's equally unbalanced.
to me it dilutes the game because
Which is sort of a kind of balance in a way.
in a strange way.
yeah.
Have you ever played, Shane?
No, because I'm afraid that I would love it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Brian and Tahar said the same thing.
I'm afraid I would love it.
if I play this game, I'll love it.
Afraid if I would love. Yeah, I hate things that I love. Are you telling me if a big blonde was in front of you and she was like,
for me, the
big
problem is
blonde?
my computer at home can't run it, but my computer at work can run it, and I don't want to be stuck at work for the rest
well,
of my life.
I didn't get the word breasted in there, which was it was
okay.
supposed to actually fall in there, but my mind.
We actually kept talking about something else, and we actually we were like the geriatric talking in the corner there.
Yeah, let's leave the crazy old man alone. What have you been playing, Luke?
Well, this Thursday morning, I actually patched everything in World of Warcraft and logged in to see how the guys in my guild were doing. And 4 or 5 guys in the guild are already 65. A bunch of guys are 64 on the way to 70. And then 2 of the other officers rerolled the paladin class and were already like 32 and 28. So they're already like cruising through leveling. And
Do you feel that you're not quite, matching up to these guys? Like
No. I mean, my character's fully ready to advance. All I have to do is install. But what I've actually been playing this week was I went up to San Diego and played Calling All Cars.
That's a PlayStation 3.
It's a PlayStation
download
3
initiative title.
Yeah, it's a
download initiative.
David Jaffe
made by
joint.
Mr. David Jaffe.
Yeah,
Wow, how'd that go?
It's actually surprisingly good. Like when I saw it demoed at Gamers Day, which was the only other time I've seen it, it just kind of looks.
It looks really arcadey. It's kind of like Super Sprint meets like Twisted Metal or something, right?
The easiest. I mean, it's NBA Jam.
Oh,
it is, which is a weird way to describe it, and it doesn't make sense. And there's a preview up on OneUp today that I wrote about it. And like when you have the criminal in your car and you have it in your car too long, right now in the build it says shot clock violation is what comes up. That's the message it gives you. That message is going to change when the game goes live, but that message is really indicative of the way the game was developed. It was developed as this very like NBA Jam. It's basketball with cars, which is sort of a weird concept to think about, but you end up driving to pick up these criminals and you only have 3 weapons and there's only 4 maps, which would seem like detractions, but you're going to pay like $8 or $10 for the game, so it doesn't really matter. And
it's a 4-player game?
It's a 4-player game. You can play right now, split screen, and there'll be some way to play over the network. I mean, they could have had us play over the network yesterday, but we didn't.
So Luke was affected by the reality distortion field around Dave Jaffe, and he's now forgiving of all things that he's normally critical of. There's only 4 maps. It's okay. There's only a few weapons.
I mean, they'll add more maps.
It's a sports game. I'm completely buying into the concept, David.
I like sports games.
Did David Jaffe dominate you?
No, I think if you watch the interview, you'll think it's quite the opposite. No, it was a lot of fun actually playing it. It controlled really well. The cars and Calling All Cars, I said, were they're like a little slidey. Like when you're making turns to try and score. Like the premise of the game is, catch criminals, bust up other people, and drive your car into a point scoring system, which is why it's like basketball. There are these point scoring systems, like 3 points, you drive up a ramp and jump over something in a.
So it's like a risk reward system kind of.
Yeah, it's totally just a risk reward score based system. And I would just try and get the 1 points because it was really easy to score on the 1 point score. But it plays really well. In split screen, there were a couple sound bugs that were annoying, but they've got another month before the game's coming out, and it is in. It's running at like 60 frames per second and looks really good. And it's, I guess, for the 2% of you who have 1080p televisions, it's 1080p.
And it's coming out in March?
I think that's what they're targeting. Yeah, March.
Cool. And that'll be on next week's OneUp show?
No, that's today.
Oh,
right
nice.
now. The
right
show
now.
segment is
Jaffe versus Luke Smith.
And then there's a long sort of unedited version of the interview as well, right?
Yeah, there's a sort of a no-holds-barred unedited version of the interview where it's just David. Like, we kept a lot of the industry stuff, I guess, in that interview, where the OneUp show segment really focuses on the game.
Cool.
So I guess the rest of y'all didn't play a whole lot of games over the 3-day weekend, huh?
Didn't really. No.
I was at the office working. Mr. Tragic.
You were here. I was here because I was here on Monday night with you.
Because you guys were poking fun at me because I was talking about games that I finished or started playing. You're like, oh, that's like so November. I finished Gears of War on hardcore. Thought the end of that was really disappointing.
The boss fight.
Yeah. So I mean, spoiler upcoming. I guess if you haven't played Gears of War, you might want to like not listen for a second. But fighting General Ram, first of all, was stupid. It's another of these anachronistic David versus Goliath things where, like, you would think, dude's just going to squash you in a fair fight. So that's dumb. And then, after all that work, you don't even get to do what you were sent to do. You watch it in a video.
It makes you excited for the sequel.
Yeah, right. So if you play Gears of War, I just want you to picture this. Steven Seagal as Marcus Phoenix. Under Siege 2.
Seagal's a bad man.
Seagal was a bad man.
Right.
He can still kick your ass, dude. He's like an Aikido black belt.
He's an Aikido fat belt.
Oh. Yeah.
Which would make him fit in the Marcus Phoenix outfit quite perfectly. And then I wanted to take John to task because I started playing Rainbow Six Vegas. Did we talk about that much on the show?
In November.
Yeah, take John to task for giving the game an 8.5, which is like what? Like that score on OneUp's like outstanding tacular? What is that?
not taking a task for the score, but I feel like there are games that we have celebrated on the show, and that really wasn't one of them. And I was
at least two weeks in a row.
You guys talked about it a lot. I remember. I was here.
Shane was here tuning out.
It was the period in November where Shane actually was here.
How's Viva Pinata?
That was kind of forgettable.
You know, according to Bill Gates, Viva Pinata is a huge success. Everyone in his family's playing it.
Well, regardless, I'm pretty impressed. If that's what the Unreal Engine can bring to, like, the 360, I think that there's a lot of optimism for how well it's going to be able to match up against PS3 down the road. You know, obviously PS3 is a pretty strong piece of hardware. Sam Kennedy obviously has gone all crazy over it.
Are you forgetting about the fact that exact same game is coming out for PS3? And
I know. So I'm saying saying that the ability to make that work so well on 360 and look so good on 360 bodes really well for the two staying neck and neck.
I didn't think it looked that awesome. I mean, it looks good. It's not unbelievably awesome, though.
So I do have to
HD, I think it looks really, really good.
I do have to wonder if Ubisoft has the voice chat working yet on the PS3 version. I hope they do.
Yeah,
you can voice chat on your PS3?
Yes, you can.
Wow. New features every day.
Interestingly, though, I guess about Unreal 3 is that I was talking to one of my friends, and apparently it's not quite as easy to program for as Epic would lead you to believe. Apparently, a lot of developers have had trouble with, like, the renderer and...
Really? Epic making their own products sound easier to make than easier to develop for?
Now, before you go nuts like that, Epic has always had a really strong track record of supporting people.
But how many other games have shipped using the Unreal 3 engine?
Right.
Oh, that's right, none.
Right, so apparently it's a little more struggles to it than people have let on.
Right?
that one's shipping like crazy.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what I've been playing, and then I also got back to Final Fantasy 12, which I'm so happy to be back to. I can't wait to finish that game.
That's the game I need to play still. I wanted to
Our lunch discussion.
Is it in the queue? Is it in the pile,
we were
pile
talking about it at lunch a little bit. Like, there's a lot of stuff from 2006 that I just didn't get to.
I still need to play Okami.
And like Final Fantasy 12 and Okami would both be on that list. I suppose that at some point when I can get the Office Wii again, I'll like keep playing Zelda.
Wii's are coming out this Sunday. You should go buy one.
Wow.
Are we just going to blow through news now?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not getting a Wii until I can walk into a store, Radio Shack even, at 2:00 on a Thursday and buy.
Could I interest you in a PlayStation 3?
Would you have a side job at Best Buy now?
I used to work at Best Buy.
Did you really?
I did.
Wow, that's kind of disparaging.
Long time ago.
All right, so anyway, why don't we move over to what's happening on the message boards? You have a bunch of stuff here written down in the notepad. Let's do that right now.
Good stuff.
There's a lot of good stuff on the boards.
There was a thread that I had to delete from the message boards.
Which thread did you delete?
It was a thread about how to get your thread on the
The reason you deleted is because they knew too much.
They were kind of breaking on the wall. I liked the thread about the affair I'm having.
I like the thread.
That was pretty awesome.
I like the thread about how you and I hate each other, Garnet.
Oh my God, Shane, dude.
I fucking hate you, dude.
Bastard. Oh, I guess we broke that one.
Yeah.
Do you want to do your
Shall I do this, or what do you know? Should we just let them?
Are there
any other threads you like?
You want to just do news really quick?
Should I spoil the rest of the podcast for you?
What we got here? Apparently,
what's in the next EGM that I can talk about real quick?
Oh, there's some Rockstar stuff. Yeah,
Oh, that's good stuff. Read
yeah. Okay. Ryan,
And a new Sudoku game.
Shut up, Garnet.
You hurt his feelings.
It's okay. I got it. I'll
Good. He took his headset off. That's good. He'll stop.
I'll drive,
interrupting.
bitches.
Ryan211 says he likes the PSP more than the DS and asks if he's alone.
Well, let's keep in mind that
he's not.
Ryan211's also the guy whose uncle works for Microsoft and said that there's going to be a Microsoft Portable coming out at CES. Yeah. He heard from his uncle.
Well, I'm sure he's not alone, but he's in the minority here among us, I think.
And DC reminded everyone that the PSP isn't bad, it's just that the DS sells better, which is a fair point. Yeah, I guess.
The PSP never killed anybody.
Didn't kill anyone, didn't do anything.
Sacramento radio station.
Oh.
Papa Pichu is upset when he learned that Susan O'Connor is the writer on BioShock, because Susan O'Connor was also the writer of Gears of War. Garnet, you might want to put your mic back on now, seeing as you just finished Gears of War.
Well, that doesn't mean BioShock's going to have a bad story. In fact, I would say...
Did you think the story in Gears of War was really, really awful?
Or just awful?
Oh, just awful. I thought the story was somewhat...
There was a story in Gears of War?
Yeah, it was kind of irrelevant, wasn't it?
I heard it was more of a premise.
Yeah, it was, shit happened and now you got to go shoot at stuff.
They're setting up for
But Quake 4 had more story than Gears of War.
Wait, Quake 4 had the same plot as like everything ever.
Right, and it had more story than Gears of War.
Did you see that episode of Friends this week? Totally Quake 4.
I thought that was Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Jeez.
I don't watch that nerd shit.
Oh.
Really? That's who writing Bioshock?
Yeah, so, because everyone, I think, has high hopes for the story in Bioshock, and then there was a, Tom Kim has his podcast on Gamma Sutra, and he talked to Susan O'Connor, and she was, talking about doing Bioshock, and I think people put, oh my God, same person? Does that mean Bioshock's going to be awful?
Ken, we've talked about you being on the show, buddy. This is probably time to give Andrew a call and get yourself in here, because we need to talk about this.
Who are you talking to?
Ken Levine.
Oh, Ken Levine.
Hey, it's time for him to come in here and talk to us about that. That actually does kind of concern me, because they have so much high concept stuff going on in that game that if it doesn't have I can't, you know what?
Well,
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because everything I've seen about it, I'm still excited.
I will say, if Bioshock is truly coming out in June, which they recently said, we need to be seeing it. We need to be playing it.
Yeah.
Well, both times they brought it to us, it was actually playable. They played it.
It was early.
It was early.
Wheels 03 has noticed that 1UP loves threadless t-shirts. Skip is nodding his head. And we learned from this thread that the awesome Darth Vader trimming his Death Star shrubbery was ruined in the wash by Skip leaving a pen in his jeans.
I had that happen to me too, Alice. A bunch of my favorite collared shirts.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's a true tragedy if Garnet lost his pattern shirt. That'd be real sad.
I'd just get another one. Someone would volunteer one for me. Look, there are plenty of tablecloths and curtains out there to be made into shirts still.
I think my grandma has a nice doily you could have.
Surprisingly self-aware of the quality.
Surprisingly self-depreciating.
That's deprecating, I think.
Oh, you're right.
Nothing depreciative or deprecating about any of that.
All right, here's one that you can all chip in on. Kappa has, as a compliment to the pile of shame, he has a pile of pride thread, which is very good. Which is
a pile of gay pride?
Kind of. But more from a gaming perspective. So gaming achievements that you're really proud of. And he mentions beating Final Fantasy VII, beating Contra 3 on hard. Teen Ape 360 piped in with getting every heart in Ocarina of Time without using a strategy guide. Lightbulb Socket says beating Halo on Legendary in one sitting.
Wow. Jesus.
Is he asking for ours?
Well, I think that might be the implication.
I thought I beat the Emerald Weapon in Final Fantasy VII without Knights of the Round.
That's tough.
I thought that was pretty. Yeah. See, Skip said, "Whoa!" He knows exactly.
Wow.
Without Knights of the Round.
That is pretty tough.
That's about an hour and a half of Bahamut.
That's impressive, Luke.
Thank you.
Props.
Thanks.
I beat The Legend of Zelda without ever getting a sword.
What?
Yeah.
How?
It's hard.
It's like I just went to the high zone.
You use a lot of bombs and candles. You have to hit Ganon with your magic wand.
That sounds kind of stupid, actually.
What?
Playing Legend of Zelda without a sword.
It's tough.
But Shane's
Okay.
just that
I don't think you
good.
could do it.
I don't think I'd want to.
I don't think you could.
Okay. I mean, I'm not really threatened by that.
What's your each other so
what's your
much.
accomplishment, Garnet? Like a really good Zerg rush? What's yours?
Diablo 2 Nightmare with one other person.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Oh, you stole mine.
Really?
Diablo 2 was one of mine, beating it on Nightmare.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
Did you play it co-op, or you didn't play that? You beat it on Nightmare by yourself?
Yeah.
I never tried to do that. That's pretty fucking brutal. That's pretty brutal.
This was
Props to you, John.
This was when I was at my brief stint as a publisher and not an editor anymore. And between spreadsheets, I was really bored, and I would play Diablo 2. And I beat Diablo 2 on Nightmare.
Wow, I did it with one of my buddies, but playing it by yourself,
That was
the
tough.
amount of Zerg at the end of that.
My right index finger is so powerful.
What class?
Skip
warrior.
just looked at me and shook his head.
You would have to.
You had to be a warrior in that game if you were going to beat it on Nightmare.
Yeah, I was playing a Necro. So
What we got
What's
now?
another one that you had? Do you have another one? Or was that your one?
That was kind of I mean, beating Final Fantasy VII, there was a nice sense of achievement. That was the first really long game I ever beat. Like,
Yeah.
kind of a big sort of role-playing. I'd never been into RPGs before, and that was like the first one.
I think it was 70 hours or so for me. The first time through.
Next thread. Indie put up...
I'm sorry, that's Fudgehog to you.
Oh, yeah, Fudgehog.
It's on Indie, aka Road.
There was an interview in Paste magazine with Cliffy where then the quote is, "I think we make games about guns because making games about talking is really hard and not interesting yet. The basis of interaction is, what's the easiest way I can touch this environment? And when you're using your gun, you're touching. You're touching the walls, you're touching the enemies, you're touching everything. There was a very long thread about that.
About touching things with things.
You know that's
touching things with your weapons.
You know that's not new. Cliffy B's been running that stuff for like a year and a half, 2 years now. I mean, that's been like his big thing about gun games and the interactivity, and that's the lowest common denominator, the way we can interact with worlds.
I mean, does anyone really disagree with that, though? I mean, a gun game does seem like a pretty easy portal to...
Well, there's an interesting thread that kind of leeches off this. Dr. Grumbles, it talks about Phoenix Wright and Hodel Dusk and asks, is this point-and-click adventures making a comeback? To which Angry Jedi's response is, Phoenix Wright, one in the face for anyone who thinks making games about talking is hard, seeing as the entire game is people talking. Actually, I've been playing Phoenix Wright this week as well.
Well, a lot of the problems with Phoenix Wright is that, at least with the first one, the story and like the gameplay degrades into just sort of random like guessing. Like it's not sensical. Where like an Encyclopedia Brown novel makes sense. You flip to the end of that book, Mr. Schmidt, Warren Schmidt. You flip to the end of that book, and you're like, I get it. That's right. I missed that part with the gum.
Well, I've been saying if you're going to play one adventure game on DS this spring, it isn't Phoenix Wright 2. It's Hotel Dusk.
Hotel Dusk, yeah, definitely. Narca 9. This one's for you, Shane. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I want to pay for Xbox Live.
Enjoy it.
His reasoning is, he says, go play a PS2 game online and look at people with tons of different alt accounts, stat cheating. He said you just need to look at a game like Ratchet Deadlock to see how people are abusing the free system.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily fair to compare PS2 online to PS3 online.
I think the argument is just a less structured environment.
Whoa. Are you going to pick that one up, or should I pick that one up?
I just had like a bad...
I'll pick it up for you. No, it's all right. Why should we not compare PS2 to PS3 online? Because they're the same, basically.
They're completely different.
Oh, you're right. They're completely different. I forgot about that. How are they different?
PS3 has a unified friends list. It's
there's a store, so I can buy shit on the PS3.
No, it's completely different.
Completely different.
I will get Shoe down here so fast.
All right, one more. Another one for you all to chip in on. Chang 3. If you could pick two games to merge, what would they be?
That's a good question.
He cites some that I don't think are that great, Halo and Star Wars, F-Zero and Wipeout, but one that I did like, because I'm so outspoken about one of the games, Devil May Cry and Castlevania. I thought that was a pretty good mashup.
It's called God of War.
That is a good mashup.
Good, you beat me to it. I was on the same
Sporky Reeves suggests Phoenix Wright and Gears of War, so then you can have Marcus Phoenix Wright.
See, I think that's a better
Marcus Phoenix Wright.
Suggestion.
That's awesome.
No, I think Gears of War could use with more like litigation and critical thinking.
Duck.
And Latin Man 280, his suggestion was Karaoke Revolution and Guitar Hero. Any off the top of your head?
Wow, no, none of the... No.
Wow, you guys are...
X-Wing and TIE Fighter and
the guy game.
Air.
You just want an X-Wing TIE Fighter reunion,
I
don't
do.
you?
I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally Games needs to take care of that.
Before.
Yes.
We probably talked about Colony Wars, too. I don't know if it was on the show or if it's just sitting around the office. Like, yes, I am dying for a game like that.
You know, you have the computer to play, and I'll say it now again on the air. You need to check out Independence War, because you would really like it if you play those games.
Larry Holland, what are you doing now? Does anyone know?
Why doesn't he come on the show? He's probably not busy.
He's gonna come back and he's gonna be in the midst of some incredible game design. He'd be
we'll use our expansive One Up Yours budget to fly you out.
We have a budget?
We do have
You're
a budget.
drinking it.
I bought this.
There you go.
All right, so if you hang around for the other side, we'll be back in just a second with a roundtable. We're going to be talking about the PlayStation 2, which is managing to quietly, or not so quietly in Sony's eyes, still make a lot of numbers. As a matter of fact, it drove most of their PR post-Christmas. So stick around. We'll be right back to talk about the last generation.
You're listening to One Up Yours, part of the One Up Radio Network.
Hi, this is Kathleen, producer of The One Up Show. We're back from our break and bigger than ever with Phoenix Wright 2, Crackdown, the world premiere of The Crossing, and David Jaffe versus Luke Smith talking about Calling All Cars on PS3. Tune in now at theoneupshow.oneup.com.
All right, we're back and ready to talk about what Luke actually told me I should call the best generation. And there's a pretty
I
damn...
said the greatest.
The greatest.
The greatest
And there's a pretty
generation.
damn good argument for that. I mean, especially just off of PS2 alone, that's that damn blackjack going
God,
again.
you know, it's just stupid, isn't it?
Yep.
It's not even doing anything.
Welcome to the GSM world.
Jerks.
I know, it's horrible. Anyway, if you look at just the PS2 library alone, there is a very valid argument that is possibly the greatest software library ever, right?
It's arguable.
It's
I mean,
up to-
it's
yeah.
something that could be defended and spawned.
I think you'd have a hard. I think the only thing you could really stack up to maybe would be SNES.
I think NES. I think PS2 and NES. Maybe.
Just plain NES, not SNES.
Plain NES. Yep.
I never had an SNES, so I don't really know. I know we've talked about this.
We've been
before,
down that
haven't we?
road before. Yeah, the whole
Driven-
Genesis.
The whole
Yeah.
I had bad
No,
parents.
But PS2 was awesome, and oddly enough, continues to be awesome.
To be sort of awesome, it's sort of awesome.
Well, if you followed the numbers, and we did the big NPD show last week, a big
God,
part of
I
what
love that part of the month.
Don't we all? But yeah, PS2 was the best-selling home console in 2006.
and Sony absolutely used that to fuel their PR. I mean,
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you know, to be fair to Sony, they sort of have to take what they're good at and focus on what they're good at. And the reality is that the price point for the PS3 is still going to be a barrier to entry, and the PS2 is super, super cheap, and it's a super awesome value, and it sells itself.
Well, what's amazing about PS2 is it continues to be the best-selling console, and it isn't at the magic $99.99 price point yet. It's at $129, and it's selling like crazy, and the software is selling like crazy. And what's more important, the software is selling like crazy at a premium price point. A game like Guitar Hero 2, which sold over 800,000 copies in the fourth quarter,
with the guitar, I believe.
costs $80.
That's incredible.
That is incredible.
Fucking believable.
Hang on, I'm going to do news for a second. Too bad Neversoft's doing the next one.
Well, maybe not too bad that Neversoft's doing the next several.
The formula is set.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I think we're going to see with PS2 games is there are a lot of formulas that are set that can be milked for indefinitely for fairly cheap development costs. There's a lot of precedents already set. We know the limitations of the device. There's a lot of games that can be added to or reinvented or, you know, for another 3, 4, 5 years potentially.
But there's a big paradox there because those franchises are what you can take to the bank that there's a certain number of people who are going to buy them. Yet the new IP is being driven on the next gen hardware, and the new IP is the most unproven part. So it's like the risk of development is going to the riskiest part of development. Doesn't that put us on a shaky foundation?
Well, I think it's a foundation that actually works because right now a developer can decide to make a safe bet for PlayStation 2, and they can also potentially port that same title to both Wii and PSP to make even more revenue. So that is the safest possible thing you can do right now is make a game for PS2, PSP, and Wii.
You know, I'm seeing this picture suddenly. I have to digress, but I see this picture of Shane like 10 years from now in like a gray suit sitting at like this office table, like describing how they're going to dominate the publishing world or something.
Am I rich?
No, but the thing is,
No, not really.
Not right now, but you're right.
But you're divorced, and she took all the money.
Fucking bitch.
It's all right. Your new boyfriend's
You've had
cool
sex?
with it.
The PS2, Wii, PSP. I mean, that like Shane said, like you
It's
laugh,
real.
Garnet.
It's real.
I mean, Ubisoft.
No, it's very real.
Ubisoft's like triple porting games at this point.
This week we saw Sony announce Pursuit Force 2 for both PSP and PS2. And that's the first time we've seen a first-party game coming to both platforms because we didn't think that was going to happen, but it is happening, and it makes sense actually. It's a wise decision for Sony.
Because they're on equal footing, and we're also seeing the same thing with PS2 and Wii games, and because they're on equal footing. So let's not digress too far first. How much longer is PS2 going to last? And let's just think about this for a second from like PS1 terms. PS1 did not really make it all the way to PS3. Can we agree on that?
It very quickly, once PS2 came out, PS1 very quickly morphed into like budget games, like kids games, and within 2 years it was basically a wasteland.
The software library did, but the hardware itself, PS1 came out, the PS1, which is the smaller version, came out very, very late in the hardware cycle.
But
They only stopped making them last year.
Hey, but part of the reason that the PS1 might not have persisted as far as we're going to see the PS2 possibly persist is because the PS2 had that whole DVD thing.
But no, also the PS1 was never. There was never any part of the plan in PS1 to try and make it last. When they were launching PS2, there was already an indication that this cycle was going to be longer than they thought, and the whole notion of overlapping cycles only really even came up as a possibility as PS2 was launching. So, the first PlayStation that really has it built into its strategy from day one is actually PS3. I mean, the PS2 will last 10 years because the PS1 did.
Right.
But the only one that is being launched day one, knowing that it's going to last that long, is PS3.
Right.
Okay, help me out for a second. Does anyone know off the top of their head what was the PS1 Ultimate installed base?
It was like 120 million.
120 million. Yeah.
Okay, so it's on equal footing then.
PS2 is at 110 million currently.
So PS2 didn't achieve the same installed base.
It's
as
close,
but it's close.
No,
and it's not done yet.
It will. It's not
right.
done.
No, I know it's not done yet.
And it's selling better now than PS1 was at the same point in its life. And both Sony and EA, after the fact, in hindsight, realized they gave up on PS1 far too early. They could have continued selling games.
There was a quote from EA a couple of years after PS2 came out saying that they regret having left money on the table with PS1.
Well, and I mean, the likelihood that EA is going to abdicate the potential revenue from the PS2 and its install base is lessened even further by the ease that we've seen of porting it to the PSP and porting to the Wii. I mean, those are two increased revenue streams. The PS2 is going to benefit tremendously from these two things.
Well, and what's interesting, last spring, I remember there was like one weekend where in one fell swoop, both Microsoft and Nintendo kind of euthanized GameCube and Xbox. And I realized, like, whoa, they just admitted defeat. They're letting PS2 own this generation. They're giving up, and they completely gave up. They really did.
Yeah, you're not going to get any.
Even though Wind Waker sold 500,000 copies, that was like the tragic denouement. Like, Xbox and GameCube are dead, completely fucking dead. Whereas PS2 is the strongest console going.
And it's amazing that they were so quick to bury them because both of them had an excess of 20 million install base.
Right.
I think we agreed Xbox was close to 30, right? Like 28-ish.
I think we're high.
I think we're high.
26. So that means 26.
I thought Xbox was sub 20.
I think you're right.
No, it's over 20.
I thought that both. I don't know. Like,
both were over 20.
Correct. I thought both were around like
worldwide.
Yes, worldwide.
No, okay, yeah, worldwide. But like,
you were talking about North America.
When they euthanized those consoles, they were cutting off revenue stream. They were putting all of their eggs into the next gen or new gen basket, and ultimately, that was a poor decision. Like, well, it really was.
I think we've talked about it a little bit before, and I think now's an appropriate time to talk about it in general. Like, we got to this gen too fast. Like, as the Xbox lifespan was winding down, the best games were shipping for the system. Like Ninja Gaiden, period.
Milky had Ninja Gaiden running on a screen
still looks
night,
good.
And he was
still
like,
looks good.
Can you tell me what generation this game is from?
It still looks incredible. It looks as good as a game, for me personally, it looks as good as a game needs to look.
And a game that I'd love to champion, because I'll throw it in there right now, Oddworld Stranger. Oh my gosh, did you guys play that game?
I played that actually.
It was good. No one played it though.
It was fantastic.
No one played it. It was very good.
And it looked gorgeous. It played great. Had incredible weapons. It's kind of a silly twist halfway through. I mean, I didn't like the twist so much. But
I think God of War 2 is a great example. It's a game that when it comes out in March, no matter how next-gen centric you are, you're going to stop what you're doing and play this game and spend $49.99 to play it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you a bit. What I disagree with is how long can the development community ignore PlayStation 2? Because you brought up Pride.
I don't know. I don't think that the development community is ignoring it. I think that the development community, at least the smart and savvy developers, are looking like we've talked about already. I feel like we're banging the drum. It's a three-pronged attack.
It is.
When you make a game for the PS2. Assuming the PS2 is your lead SKU, you downscale a little bit for.
Well, we've already seen it. Sega
PSP.
announces Alien Syndrome for Wii and PSP. Okay, and at the same time, we see things like, like Sony announcing that game for PS2 and PSP,
right,
and Ubisoft doing it. Other developers are doing this. I know, like, there's some other big third-party announcements coming out for PS2 and PSP.
I think we're going to see that for the next few years. And I mean, just from being a gamer, you can't justify $400, $500, $600. I mean, it's good to know that there's stuff coming. And this is a generation where the plan came a little late to do this, but they spotted it was going to happen because of what happened with PS1.
Right.
So I think we'll definitely, what it's going to do is it's going to slow the development of the next gen platforms, particularly
how much.
Okay, but the thing is, then that's what I want to talk about. Is like, could the longevity of the PS2 ultimately hurt the PS3?
Well,
and I think it has a chance to completely dismantle a lot of what
I agree. I think it could completely ice it.
Problem is PS2.
Yeah, because if you have developers still making great games for PS2, and like you said, God of War 2 is going to be good, I hope. But, I mean, you have developers sort of eschewing PS3 development because it's too expensive. You have consumers eschewing purchasing the PS3 because of the price point, and maybe a lot of your PS3 consumers end up being guys getting the system for the Blu-ray functionality on the cheap. In the meantime, you have this tremendous lead that Microsoft's enjoying because of being the market first. That gap's going to continue to grow, and is that going to continue to facilitate a culture where third parties are making their games multi-platform?
We don't know that gap is going to continue continue to grow. It's quite possible that within 2007, either Wii or PS3 could completely catch up to Xbox 360. That is completely possible.
Well, I think that the Wii will.
And monkeys could fly out of my ass.
No, I think that the Wii absolutely could if they can get the whole like making 5-year-old tech down
I was
and like
addressing
shipping
PS3.
it. But PS3, I don't think. I'm going to say now the PS3
I mean, it's less likely that PS3 will catch 360, but it is possible.
It's possible, but it's also possible that like I'll be in the NBA by next fall.
No, look, we can talk about PS3 for a second. You brought up price, and I think price is the big thing. I want to say that the wave you were talking about, PS2 being PS3's worst enemy, hasn't even crested. What's going to happen when you walk into Walmart and a PS2 is $99.99?
I'll buy one because I need a Slim still.
That's one price cut. This thing could still have 2 price cuts in it.
Right.
There's no one saying that PS2 couldn't even go to $79.99.
So you guys are acting like PS2 is like, oh, this problem for Sony. No, actually, it's part of their strategy. Like the PS2's continued success.
Oh, I didn't understand. I'm sorry. We're dumb. We didn't understand.
No, I want to hear. No, but I want to hear that.
But it allows Sony to like continue. Developers get more accustomed to PS3, make games that actually use the functionality, use the potential of PS3. And in 2008, when PS3 is becoming a more wide mainstream system, more people are buying it. The games are better. PS2 at that point is waning. By Christmas 2008, do we really think that games are coming out for PS2 that we want to play? Not as much anymore.
I think that you're right.
I think by Christmas 2008, it'll be more kids games, more mass market games. And at that point, that's when the switchover happens. And all this time, Sony's been making money hand over fist on PS2, whereas Microsoft and Nintendo are making nothing on GameCube and Xbox One. So it's a win-win situation for Sony in that situation.
Well, but here's the thing: like how much? But Sony is still by Christmas of 2008 going to be losing money on every PS3, and by then Microsoft and God knows already Nintendo are going to be making money on their hardware. So from like a revenue perspective, you're going to be entering a different whose profit margin is going to be higher.
I think that's the transition that Sony wants.
You guys thought I was nuts when I talked about this 6 months ago, and guess what? 360 is going to be already halfway into its hardware cycle and about ready to announce the next Xbox.
In 2008?
So, yes.
You think they're going to announce it?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's going to be.
Well, I think
if
they announce the next Xbox 2008, then they've lost.
I don't know.
No,
they have billions of dollars. This is the knife to the heart.
No, wrong. I agree completely with Shane on this. If you have a system that I believe is going to continue, at least in North America, to outsell the PS3 through all of next year.
Xbox One only lasted 2 years in Europe. Do you want Xbox 360 to only last 2 years? Is that what you want?
I don't really care because, to be honest with you, I don't care about what piece of plastic plays my software. But the bottom line is that Microsoft has a huge war chest. They want to win anytime they go into a market segment. They didn't come to video games to play around or anything else. They came into the market segment to win.
Make money.
They came in to win, and they came in by
winning isn't easy.
Winning isn't easy. By the way, how much real competition is there to Windows?
There's no competition.
Why'd you bring it to that?
Because that's how they win. They will go to they will spare no expense to dominate a market and to take it over.
Good luck beating iPod, Microsoft.
They're not having to worry about iPod.
Oh, really? Okay. Anyway,
how are you bringing
that dude? Shane, that's totally an argument. That's not.
We're all getting off topic.
Right,
okay, back to the topic of the PlayStation 2. I will say there's a big problem facing the continued success of PlayStation 2 in Japan, and that problem is Square Enix. When Square Enix decided to move Dragon Quest IX to the Nintendo DS instead of the PlayStation 2, that's a vote of no confidence in PlayStation.
That was a vote of no confidence.
That's a defection.
Is that premature?
I think it is. I think if Square Enix stops making new IPs, or new games in the Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy IP for PS2, that's a big problem.
Well, it becomes a huge problem for
Square Enix.
Well, it becomes a huge problem for Sony.
No, Dragon Quest is going to sell like 4 million copies on DS.
Sony has no foothold in Japan, is what Shane's getting to ultimately, and what he's getting to is the ultimate concession of Japan by Sony, by Sony's strategy to Nintendo. It's not.
And Wii is dominating PS3 in Japan, obviously.
But they bring those games to North America as well. And here we still have a much larger PS2 install base than we have a DS base.
Yeah, yes. By orders of magnitude. True. Yeah.
But if the number one RPG manufacturer in the world stops supporting PS2, that's a problem.
Well, absolutely, and I think part of the mentality that needs to shift, and this is kind of what I was driving towards, is that there's no reason for PS2 to be maintained simply by churned out franchises. For instance, here is Burnout. What's the name
Dominator?
of Burnout? Burnout Dominator coming to PS2 and PSP, right?
Right.
We don't need to just see churned out stuff. I think there's a fertile ground here for maybe second teams or third teams to do new IP development on PS2.
Wow, you know what it sounds like we're talking about? Like like the discussion we had on the DS a couple weeks ago about like small skeleton crews working on new and innovative IPs.
Because you know how to work with the PS2.
But I think the other thing that we're going to see on the PS2 is franchise expansion to establish a franchise so that it'll lay a foundation for a PS3 game.
Do you have an example in mind?
Okay.
Not a specific example, but what I think we'll see happening is there'll be the big multi-million-dollar production on PS3, and while that's going on,
a smaller game?
Killzone is kind of something where they're doing this with PSP supporting Liberation supporting the franchise. I think what started to happen with Twisted Metal with the PSP version supporting, coming after Black and expanding the franchise out. I think a way to lay the groundwork is put out a cheap game and establish a franchise and a universe, and then maybe come in later with a PS3 game that builds on a fan base that's already interested in the characters and the environments. I think that's a smart way to go after it. Right. Rather than doing the dumbed-down version afterwards, do the cheap version to test the water, and then come out with the mega blockbuster afterwards.
So strategically, are you saying that it would be wise for Sony to look at doing something like a Killzone remake, where they fix the frame rate and retouch the development and ship that ahead of the Killzone PS3 version?
They won't do that because,
but that would be savvy.
But it would be savvy, yeah.
Or a brand extension. I mean, even on PS1, we saw things happening like Siphon Filter 3 and Twisted Metal Small Brawl very late in the PS1 world. You're like, wow, Sony really is still supporting this. Unlike Microsoft and Nintendo with GameCube and Xbox One, like Sony will continue to support PS2 for years to come with original quality product.
Mm-hmm. I think whatever's going to happen with God of War, like what we're seeing with God of War 2 is, as much as it being a big game for a machine with a huge installed fan base, it's laying the groundwork for the real deal.
Well, the real deal, just from the discussion we had, I don't know if this was recorded or not. I hope that it was. But it doesn't sound like Jaffe's going to be heading up God of War 3 like people have speculated. It sounds like the reins...
Balrog?
Yeah, the new God of War is Corey. So God of War 2 is going to be sort of indicative, I think, of what you're going to be seeing from God of War 3. So
isn't Jaffe in more of a visionary role now?
Yeah, in Santa Monica he is.
When you guys were talking about territories, something that we haven't talked about that's really important is that the territories in play aren't Europe, the US, and Japan anymore. I think the really important thing that's expanding gaming now, and you hear any of these guys talk about what their strategy to stretch the lifespan, and PS2 is going to come into this too, is China, Russia, India, all these countries where they're going to have to go and speak. Right now, these companies are speaking to the governments about coming in and establishing a base and getting approval for the devices.
The markets there are often like a whole decade behind or something, like 10 years behind.
Well, yeah, China just got
a billion people in India,
right?
A billion people in India, and there's not many game systems out there. They could put the PS2 out there, and it's going to last.
Microsoft's been pretty proactive about trying to get to these countries first. They've launched in some weird countries like India.
Mm-hmm. It's like South American territories and African
but we saw
territories.
In Australia, 360 had a lot of success at first, but then we quickly caught up to it. Like we in 3 weeks sold what 360 sold in a whole quarter
at like a fraction of the price. It's like that whole price point barrier to entry argument again.
And the generation that we're going through now is the first one where they're pushing globally. But the other thing is, if you're pushing high-def gaming, you're not really speaking to the whole world. So, for Sony to go in with PS2 as their way, Microsoft's taken the 360 to all these territories, and part of the big numbers they've been throwing around is because they've been breaking into these new territories where there is no competition.
Right.
If Sony can follow by putting the PS2, which is more attainable because it's cheaper, it doesn't have the technology requirements, they could nurture some local development talent, Indian development talent. People are outsourcing code to there already.
Right. Realistically, the continued success and domination of the PlayStation 2 is the strongest asset that Sony has.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a hell of a strong asset. So if PS1, fell maybe a year short of PS3, how far does PS2 carry? How close does it come to PS4?
I think, as I said, I think PS2 will stop being relevant for hardcore gamers by Christmas of 2008, but I think it will continue to be a valid...
But when it does that, it would have been a relevant platform for 8 years?
8 years. But I think it'll stop being a relevant thing in terms of sales in 2010.
Yeah.
Wait, you think it's going to continue to sell well? You're talking beyond North America at this
Right,
point.
beyond North America, I think it'll stop being like an asset by 2010.
So what's the impact then on the PS3 development? Because if it's costing you exponentially more to build a PS3 game, and people are buying PS2 in droves, but PS3s not so much because there's not a lot of software there yet.
As we said, like companies like Ubisoft and EA will be very wise to continue to milk this market, the PSP/PS2/Wii market, for years to come.
How well do you think those numbers work? I mean, Luke, you looked at those NPD numbers. Is it theoretically possible that as a publisher I could make enough money off my PS2 stuff to fund PS3 games that are losing me volume, a huge amount of money?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you'll probably see in the next year, I think you'll see sometime over the course of 2007, developers who are working on premium PS3 games will announce PS2 projects that you will want to play.
So as a publisher, my PS3 game just becomes my flagship title. This is my brand identity. And by the way, I sell all this other stuff.
Exactly. It becomes your brand identity, but your chief source of revenue and the easiest way to turn profits and your highest profit margins will come from games that ship on PS2.
Did you talk to Jaffe about this? Why isn't calling all cards on PS2?
I didn't ask him that.
Or PSP for that matter. Maybe, yeah. That's something you'd think a game like that. I mean, you do it on PS3 for download. I mean, it's part of the download initiative to get some attention, but you'd think as a game it would be perfectly suited to.
It looks a little better than a PSP game. It looks better than a PSP game.
I would say ultimately the big loser in this whole equation are Wii gamers, because those Wii ports are all going to suck.
Really?
I think so.
Well, I think, but then how? I mean, to continue on that, how detrimental is that going to ultimately be for Nintendo and Nintendo's vision?
And why did Nintendo let it happen?
It's going to become the sort of thing where Nintendo's consoles, the sloppy seconds of third-party development. And that's exactly the opposite of what Nintendo needs to happen.
Theory from ages ago that Wii 2 is going to come the soonest.
And I'm sticking by it, and I think that the Luke was right T-shirts will be going sometime next year.
Can I buy one on Cafe Press?
So you can't. I have a link for you on my bookmarks. You want
one? By the way, are you saying that that's going to be a whole new Wii or just a revised version?
I'm thinking now a whole new Wii.
You think now a whole new Wii?
That within maybe a short, definitely less than 5 years.
Think of how many years they've had to work on the technology.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll borrow from I don't know, a PC from 2002 next.
Well, let me flip this conversation for a second, because we've been pretty much talking about how powerful PlayStation 2 is. No big surprise there. We know how many installed bases it has. How does Microsoft's decision to completely abandon the Xbox position the 360?
Well, it gave them a head start on the next gen. And the decision to kill Xbox One and focus solely on Xbox 360 was obviously a positive thing. They've brought a lot of new gamers in. They have a lot of positive buzz. People are very happy with the services.
Yeah, the other thing you have to remember about Xbox was more than just getting a system out. Xbox was about rolling out an entire Microsoft infrastructure that wasn't there before. It was a brand. It was a retail presence that they didn't have. All those Xbox pods in retail, Microsoft never had anything like that. I mean, the struggle that they're having getting the games to Windows shelving into stores, the Xbox, that whole division within Microsoft that did that for Xbox was a new part of the company that had never been there before. There were whole elements of their business that Xbox was just the product that they were getting out there. I mean, in a way, you can look back at Xbox as laying all the groundwork for 360, which is kind of the real deal. It's developer support, retail support, distribution, all of that stuff that they didn't have. And for 360, they launched straight into it, and it was already there.
Right.
And live, probably more than anything as a product, was the most powerful thing that came out of the first Xbox.
Well, it's still the best thing that Microsoft has to hang their hat on is live.
And look at how many hats they're hanging on it now, really.
Well, I mean, yeah, they have the XNA initiative, the Xbox Live Arcade, all the functionality that they are going to reportedly continue to add to the system twice a year.
I mean, at the same time, when Bill Gates is going on the record deriding Nintendo for their lack of online savvy, it's apples and oranges, and it seems to me like they should focus on their successes and not try to undercut their rivals that way.
It's not the time or the place necessarily, but Nintendo's online quote strategy end quote is a whole weird anomaly of itself. I mean, that's a company who does not seem to understand online.
You know your friend Code, right?
I do.
Right, but their lack of online savvy has had not impacted them in any way.
Well, friend code, will you be able to remember your Pokemon friend code?
No, it hasn't impacted them. It hasn't impacted Nintendo in any way, but it still is another. It's another thing where I know and this is just anecdotally, but I know people who just play 360 because they like the online part of it. That's what drives them to the platform.
Right, and
whereas Nintendo, what drives Nintendo fans to the platform is the same IPs that have been driving Nintendo.
But when Nintendo is driving 10 times as many people to their similar platforms, is it really a valid criticism of Nintendo?
Platforms. That's like Nintendo PR incorporating the success of GBA and Nintendo DS to say that we won the holiday.
Right, but it's
from
the same,
a revenue and profit
it's the same idea of Microsoft people like saying, the success of PS2 or GBA or DS is irrelevant because we're winning in this one specific.
Well, yeah, everyone does that. That's why I wrote the story about how everyone's
spin is spin.
Yeah, and I'm just pointing out that you're spinning.
I'm just a little surprised still sitting here that you guys are so convinced that PS2 being successful will just automatically make PS3 successful.
I don't think anyone has drawn that. I don't think anyone has connected that A and that B.
Wait,
I think that the PS3 is completely unproven. And
why do you think we're making that connection?
Yeah, because the connection was this: PS3 games will continue to lose money. Those developments will continue to be funded because PS2 games will be pumping enough money into those publishers that they'll
PS2 is this amazing cushion of
that's
success.
Where the money's coming from. It doesn't say that the PS3 is going to be successful because of it.
Right.
All it's doing is it's
keeping heads above water. Is what it's doing. It's not saying you're swimming with those floaties. You're just fucking not drowning.
It gives Sony an out that no one else has. Nintendo has it with DS. Like the success of DS allows Nintendo to kind of fuck around with Wii.
Well, Microsoft has it.
Okay, then.
Well, here, just a sec. Microsoft has that cushion with the huge barrels of money that they have. They can afford to lose money over and over again.
Right.
Then let me bring it back to you again. What will an extremely prolonged, extremely successful PS2 do to PS3? Not you first.
It'll damage the potential install base of the PS3 and allow Microsoft and Nintendo to gain even greater leads that result in the loss of critical third parties that once defined the PS2 and will not define the PS3 going forward.
It further strengthens the PlayStation brand as the dominant brand in home console games.
I love you, Shane. That's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
No, it's true.
I love you.
John?
How do you follow that?
However you like to. You're the big kahuna.
Ready? I'll show you. Shane, fired.
Don't fire me, John.
No, what I think it's going to do is it's a little bit of what both of them said in a lot of ways, and that is that. The PS2 is to Luke's point is it's going to keep heads above water, and there's if a $20 million project and you can fund that by putting out a $5 million project and make your money back faster. It's if they fuck it up at any point, if the hardware, they make some mistake with the hardware, but what happens in the games industry is people do pull out of the lesser generation too quickly. And
people have learned from their mistakes.
They pull out too early and they mess up all over the place.
And I'm the poor underbelly of gaming.
And I gotta say, I'm from.
Oh God!
Oh Jesus!
Oh God! There's so much semen in the room.
Oh, it's disgusting. I'm from Kentucky, where a lot of really poor redneck losers live, and we'd have people coming in, be like, "What you got for the NES?" And we're like,
right.
Hey, they stopped making NES games 10 years ago. What are you talking about, poor person? And those people in Kentucky are going to continue buying PS2s for a long time.
They are going. I agree. So what happened with the PS1, I don't see... Look, I think there's this thing that happened with the PS1 where as people moved to PS2, the PS1 got handed down to their 7-year-old kid brother,
right,
or their buddy who doesn't really play games so much. I don't think that's going to happen as much with the PS2.
It's different. People aren't buying $10 Hooters Road Trip. They're buying $80 Guitar Hero 2.
Exactly. And that strength is why I agree with Luke on this point, and I think that it ultimately, the longer it runs, the tougher and tougher the position gets for Sony. This is why when Microsoft cut the umbilical cord, they said, we're going next gen.
What this allows savvy, new gamers with lots of money to buy PS3 now and be happy with it. But, it allows people who have PS2s who aren't ready for next gen to continue being happy with that console. And in 2 years, when they're ready to upgrade, then they can. They're not pushing people forward. They're not killing their console.
In 2 years, now you're in 2009.
Yeah, and the PS3 is a 10-year project, dude.
Is it, though?
It is.
Xbox 360, not a 10-year project.
No, it isn't.
So what's going to happen? So what's going to happen then to your PS3 when the next Xbox comes along? Well, the
thing is, that's going to be a really dangerous position that Microsoft's going to find themselves in. If the PS3, by that point, by the time Microsoft's ready to launch another console, the rest of the world will be ready for a system like the PS3. By the time Microsoft's going to launch another console, a 1080p television will not be an anomaly in a household. It will be the standard in a household, and Microsoft will have to find a way to push hardware further to justify the purchase. They'll be in the same situation if Microsoft launches too early that Sony's in right now. And if Microsoft launches too early, then Microsoft will be hanging themselves in a generation where they otherwise right now are in the driver's seat, at least in North America.
Microsoft's next console is a corrected version of the Xbox 360 that's more like a PlayStation 3.
More like a PlayStation 3 and all the ways that the PlayStation 3 is a tremendous failure right now, and that it's too early and it's too ahead of its time. If Microsoft launches
but
too
it's
early,
not.
they're
It's already
dead.
behind its time. Come on, we're talking about from CES DirectX 10 and 8800 NVIDIA cards. The freaking video chip in a PS3 has already been abandoned by its manufacturer.
The PC doesn't play in a discussion about the consoles because the upgradability of PCs in general makes it an unfair argument.
I was drawing the relationship to cutting edge technology and ahead of its time, not necessarily.
Well,
console.
what I'm saying though is in the console space, like the idea of cutting edge and ahead of its time is totally different, and it's two different
I want to go back to
discussions.
something you said. What year did you say 1080p would be the standard in a household?
What'd you say? 2009?
10.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Yeah, I
How many
concur on this.
guys, for the time
Really?
being...
I was,
yeah, come on. How many college dorm rooms right now have something better than a 20-inch TV in it?
HD saturation is happening fast.
It's
really
happening fast, but people, it's not like, oh, I'm going to go out and buy a TV tomorrow. I mean, it's $2,000 for a decent-sized TV.
And the problem here also is that we never had a North American standard, so you still have some stations on 720p, some on 1080i. 1080p has nothing to do with broadcast.
But even
it's
that,
immaterial.
forget the tech. Just think about the money. Who plays games? Mostly guys, a lot of them in colleges, a lot of kids.
Right, and even worse is that in the stores they are now selling digital tuner standard definition television, so the people they're not forced to upgrade just to get away from analog. They can just buy a $400 or $500 standard def television with a digital tuner.
And one of the reasons they went from 720 to 1080 isn't just because, it's whatever it is, a couple of hundred better.
Are you gonna say
they
Bravia?
can charge more for it.
Right.
That's why the price on 720 was coming down. So how are we going to rate people a little bit more sooner? And that's what it comes down to.
Wow, John channeling Luke, totally.
Well,
I like the use of rave.
back to the PS3 360 debate. I mean,
That's a
no
pull
one
quote.
at this table is going to sit here and say that Xbox 360 is as future-proofed as PS3. It isn't.
No, I'm not. I don't think anyone's going to sit and argue, but I don't think that that's the aim necessarily. I think the aim is early to market first, and install quickly, and then lean on Halo.
Can I argue that point just for a second?
You can do whatever you want to.
I just to take the chair because I want to take the chair to think this through for a second.
It's like
Why
a
is
conch
360?
shell.
Why is 360 not as future proof? Because we actually don't even sell. Okay, first of all, the cell architecture has been much talked about, but no one's really broken it down and said
it has more computations per second.
It has
than the Xbox 360 processor.
It has an
but
excellent number.
Also, the PS3 has built-in hard drive, has 1080p support, has HDMI. It has just basic
none of which
features.
cannot be addressed on a 360
Well, they
console.
cannot be addressed,
in a hardware update.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like via hardware update or
Right.
via it's embarrassing to side with Shane. It really is.
I know. I'm sorry you have to.
Yeah, but the thing is, like in this particular situation, like as far as what you're getting out of the box, you're paying more, and whether what you're paying more justifies what you're getting
Right.
is a whole other argument. But you
Okay,
are getting
so
a
we're
more
talking-
future-ready system.
at the
Are we
same
talking
time-
about out of the box versus
We are.
in general?
We are.
Okay,
We are.
Right now,
And-
out of the box,
and
I will concur. Obviously,
And Wii is future-proof for like 1996.
I'm glad that you said it because I was thinking.
Yeah,
Agree
okay.
again.
We're talking about theoretical versus out of the box. Obviously, out of the box, and this would be like the one place I would agree with Sam's blog. Out of the box, the PS3 is an amazing piece of hardware. My argument with the PS3, and I guess this will be the big thing about PS3 development this year, is critical for them as far as software. VF5 is the beginning.
Is your argument for PS3 that within 3 months of its release, it hasn't beaten the Xbox 360 after 16 months of release? Is that your
I don't
argument?
have an argument against or for it. My argument right now is for PS3, and this is what people have been upset with us about, is that we're not celebrating the potential of it because, you know what, it's no longer a potential system. It's been on store shelves. It's on store shelves.
It's a system.
It's a system now.
not-
Right. Well,
and so
when
what matters to me...
I sit and play
let me finish, please.
Okay, finish.
What matters to me is what goes in it, which is why VF5 is exciting to me because that's something to
Right.
put in the damn thing that I can have fun
As
with.
I said, when I sit at my house and play VF5 and MotorStorm and have a really great time with it, I'm having a good time and
So
it's a
they
good
need
console.
more of that. That's
they
what they
do,
need.
and
It's been out for 3 months.
Well,
For better or for worse, the position they're in is that they're up against an established 360 with a bigger library.
I'm glad
That's
that you
true.
said that. I mean, that's the huge hurdle is that while Sony is going through the sort of, the drought,
Right.
like a drought similar to what the 360 encountered.
Life's not fair. Sorry, that's the way it works.
It's not a level playing field.
And Garnet, I would ask you to compare Xbox One to PlayStation 2 and then compare Xbox 360 to PS3 and have some...
Why? I will agree with you. Xbox One walked into the same situation and got their fucking clock cleaned. And I don't think PS3 is going to get quite beat that badly, but right now they desperately need software, and they need us. You know what they need to do? Sony really needs to bring to us more of what they have in the pipeline so that we can start talking about it. Exactly.
That's the thing.
Right before April.
Yeah, I was talking with Sony. I was talking with Sony this afternoon about. I was talking with a representative from Sony about the Gamers Day upcoming, and I was like, this has to be for you guys. Whatever's happening in April, whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it, it has to be the coming out party. This has to be like Liza Minnelli. Like, here's Killzone. Here's the Naughty Dog.
Dude, it has to be a hell of a lot better than Liza Minnelli.
Here are all the reasons that you Luke need a PS3. Right. It has to be the equivalent of Microsoft showing Halo at E3, where you come away from that and go, okay, I've got to get a 360.
November 2007. November 2007 is going to be a very, very interesting time for all parties involved.
Well, we've said for ages, November 2007, like this year, 2007, this is it. This is the battleground. A year from now, when we're talking about years in gaming, it's going to just be critical.
The shit hits the fan.
This is it. This is a war.
When we're playing, hopefully Halo and Alan Wake and Mass Effect and Metal Gear Solid 4 and Final Fantasy 13 and Killzone 2 and Smash Brothers and Mario Galaxy.
I mean, if you have all those games sitting at your house, it's good to have a hobby like this.
It's a good time to be in gaming.
It is a good time to be a gamer. This is a great time to be a gamer, and everyone who's listening to this knows how good a time it is to be a gamer. And us arguing about it is just because we're passionate and we love it. And you know what? Switch gears for a second. Over the last year, we have argued about a whole lot of stuff, and Andrew wants to wrap up the show really quick here. But I want to let each of you give me whatever your favorite point from the last year was. What was the favorite point in the show? What was the most enjoyable time you had sitting here, sitting upstairs?
I'm going first. The best time I had was at the pool at the Figaro Hotel at E3, the epic 4-hour video
absolutely
podcast that you can go download.
That was fantastic.
We were all pretty fucked up, and it was a great time.
Well, there's the bittersweet part of that is that
I wasn't there.
You weren't there.
I had to leave.
That you regret that, though, right?
I do very much. But I thought actually that the whole block of shows that we did from E3, I had a blast with.
Well, I think, and I've said, for a while now, that those shows that we did at E3 were probably the most important series of shows that we did, saying, listen, we're going to come every day, and we're going to talk to you every day about what's been going on. Mm-hmm. And I think that people really gravitate toward the show then. Garnet, what's your favorite?
Well, I was going to wrap it up with this, and you guys are going to pull another one of those that's so corny things every Thursday.
Oh, every Thursday? Some Thursdays have sucked, dude.
Yeah.
I think that
I cannot say that I have sat down here and done this show since it came together that I haven't been thrilled. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, it's so...
Actually, on the flip side, something that has surprised me every time we do it is how negative some people are when we interview people.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
They hate it when we get people in here.
Last week, the opinion on the Command & Conquer stuff, I mean, I admit, CNC, PC, RTS, it's a little bit specialized, but I thought they were interesting, witty, funny guys.
They knew
their stuff, they knew the format, but a lot of people didn't like it.
And the irony of that is they want to listen to us.
Yeah, but a lot of people didn't like Ted, a lot of people didn't like
the Rockstar guy.
We need to skip on. What's his favorite moment?
The grumbling is Andrew coming on the...
I have lots of favorite moments, and E3 was definitely the high point, but I just want to say, if you don't like the show that you're listening to, wait next week. We're going to do another one. We do it every week. We're not going away. So
yeah,
that might be my favorite part of the show is that
we do it every week.
Stuff stuff other properties that we have at Ziff will take time off for Deadline, or the One Up Show's been on hiatus for 5 weeks. We took a week off for Christmas and put shows. We bookended it with shows, and it's we're just here.
And you think this is fun? This isn't fun.
Oh, you're such a fucking liar.
I think I want to hang out with these guys.
So look, respect where respect is due. I've listened to a lot of talk radio to try and get ideas, and especially you guys know if you listen to the show. Obviously ESPN stuff. I used to listen to, among other things, Jim Rome. I listen to Rome a lot, and if you have a problem with this show, I will just tell you that I have always drawn learned a lot about how I structure trying to run the show from listening to the Rome show, and it's kind of like what he tells you about that show, which is it's kind of like beer. The first time you had one, you're like, I don't know about this. And especially if someone handed you a Sam Adams, and then a month later you're like, yeah,
and
Sam Adams.
2 months later, you're passed out in boxers.
So exactly. One up yours, the Sam Adams of podcasting. We'll be back in just a few seconds with the news from Luke.
I didn't see you there. But as long as you're here, let me tell you about EGM Live, the weekly podcast from the editors of Electronic Gaming Monthly, along with the wonderful sounds of... EGM Live comes action-packed with special guests, late-breaking news, fanboy-baiting commentary, behind-the-scenes tales of office tomfoolery, and trivia contests with fantabulous prizes. Download it now at egmlive.oneup.com or subscribe to it through iTunes.
EGM Live is part of the OneUp Radio Network, taped in the Ziff Davis offices in San Francisco. It is not actually live, and contest prizes are not guaranteed to be fantabulous.
Note, the crew of Yanks is back to provide the news for the world.
I'm not a Yank.
I'm a Yankee fan.
You know what, John? By the way, actually, you did cop to being a Yank now, if I remember correctly, a couple weeks ago when I was giving you and Simon trouble about being Brits.
I know. I've been in 9 years, so you are rubbing off on me a little bit.
Do you try to keep the accent for like a little extra success?
Chicks dig it.
Chicks do dig it.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yes. Especially if you really pile it on.
As John often does.
Oh, darling.
Oh, God.
Well,
then there are guys on
Luke's getting a little.
I'm blushing.
And I was saying about it rubbing off on me. Like I think Luke's doing something with his leg.
That's not his leg.
Luke's rubbing something.
It's a leg. It's
Your leg.
You have some news,
Right.
Luke, right?
Aren't we a naughty boy?
Do you have any news?
A little bit, yeah. Final Fantasy remakes. You've alluded to this. This is a Shane was right situation. You've alluded to. You said that Square Enix a few weeks ago. I think Shane said that Square Enix has some stuff coming out to PSP.
This is one of his infuriating. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah, that will make you. That will invigorate you toward buying a PS3 or PSP. We're still waiting on what it is.
You may have also read about this in Quarterman in the EGM. But yeah, this week in Japan they announced remakes of Final Fantasy 1 and 2. How excited are we?
Not
When
so
are
much.
they
You know
going
what?
to do 7? For God's sake.
They already have.
They're saving it for when they're really fucked.
They already have. All you have to do is BIOS 1.5 and slap that thing on. Same with Vanguard Story and everything else, man.
yeah.
You know how to do that,
I'll
right,
say,
John?
Final Fantasy 1 and 2, if you've played these on NES, you played them on GBA, you played them on PlayStation 1, you're going to buy them again separately on the PSP. That's kind of lame.
Totally lame. But is there other?
But I will say, this isn't the end of Square Enix's bizarre love affair with PSP. There's more shit coming. The 20th anniversary of Final Fantasy is not over, and you'll be really surprised by some of the stuff you see later
we've got
year.
Final Fantasy, we got Final Fantasy 2, we got Final Fantasy Tactics.
You have Crisis Core, Final Fantasy 7.
Is now the time that we're going to
6
see?
coming for DS.
20-year anniversary. Is this when we're going to see some sort of Final Fantasy 7 announced?
No, you're not going to see a remake of Final Fantasy 7 on PSP, but you will see some very exciting, unexpected Final Fantasy games on PSP.
What about PS3? What are we going to see that? I mean, that Final Fantasy 7
You'll
remake.
see
Remember
a
that
playable demo of Final Fantasy 13 this year on PS3.
you just jumped to like the end.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we're getting like Chocobo Adventure on PSP.
No, I'm talking about like there's one
That Chocobo racing game they did. That was pretty awesome.
There's specifically one PSP game that nobody could ever guess ever that will blow everybody away.
How about something about the Turks? That'd be awesome.
No, better than that.
As long as we're on like the whole Squaresoft thing, can I just get, if you're out there listening and you like Front Mission at all, would you please start like making threads about Front Mission for DS?
You don't think it's gonna happen?
Dude, I'm having the hardest time with Square just trying to even get a chance to
Skip
look at
wants
the
to
thing.
say something.
Chrono Trigger.
Well, I will say there are some other remakes and ports that aren't Final Fantasy from Square Enix on PSP and DS.
Yeah, they were heavy at DS and TGS.
There's some DS stuff that hasn't been announced yet.
I'm telling you,
either.
Front Mission would be an easy bring over. Somebody get on the like public groundswell on that.
Yeah, Square Enix has more stuff in this year. We'll see.
Rockstar Vienna guys who had their studio closed, I think early last year, have formed their own studio called Games That Matter. For the 5 of you who care, the Rockstar Vienna guys.
Which Rockstar game did Rockstar Vienna work on?
I'm about to tell you. Actually,
okay.
the console versions of Max Payne and the Xbox versions of a bunch of the Grand Theft Auto stuff.
So
they were like a port house. Really.
So who left? Who left Rockstar?
Well, no, the Rockstar Vienna was actually a studio that existed and was closed, and now these guys from the ashes of Rockstar Vienna being closed formed a studio called Games That Matter.
And they've probably already been
You're
picked
mixing
up
this
by
up
2K.
with another story which broke this week, which is that Terry Donovan.
Terry Donovan
who was
left
president
Rockstar.
of Rockstar. He took a month leave of absence, and I think he's chosen not to come back.
Right.
I mean, he's swimming in money, right? Like it's
I would hope so.
And insanity.
What?
Well, I mean, for Rockstar in North America, isn't it going to get pretty rough? I mean, this is the year GTA ships. They're probably going to have people picketing. It's probably
Yeah,
going to
we
be a
can't
pain
think
to
about
park
it.
your Lamborghini.
But actually, Rockstar has some other things coming too. I think Rockstar is going to come back this year. We'll see.
You think LA Noire is going to be really hot?
That, and they have some other games too.
I know what you're talking about. And I don't believe that that's going to really do anything.
Are you worried that like Rockstar is going to finally hit that like laying in the alley with a needle stage?
No, I think GTA 4 is going to be the biggest thing they've had yet. That's me.
I was actually.
That sounded like you were joking when you said
No,
that.
I'm
Like,
serious.
I was looking at Luke, so I was kind of hoping he would answer.
no, I don't.
There was a bit of snark there.
I'm not taking that bait. I'm passing ball. Guitar Villain, Drum Villain trademarks have been registered. This would be some sort of, I guess we would suspect, some sort of foil for Guitar Hero, as these trademarks have been registered by Activision. So in the wake of, right? What do you, Skip, you're shaking your head.
I just don't understand why.
I don't understand.
Guitar Villain? That doesn't
You
make any
are a
sense.
guitar villain.
Would a Guitar Villain game be like a game of Ashley Simpson covers?
Maybe they just registered them to keep some idiot from registering them and making a
But
counter game.
Doesn't this make sense with the quote we heard from the CEO of Activision this week? Did you hear where he says he's going to bring Guitar Hero to every viable platform in 2007?
Oh, God.
Multiple times.
Oh, boy.
You'd be playing it on your phone.
DS guitar plugin confirmed. Lumina's live packs are coming next week. We destroyed these guys earlier in the year, or late last year.
I was expecting you to tee off on this one.
I'm not going to tee off on this one, actually. I think that this is sort of I'm going to accept this as an olive branch, making stuff like the Heavenly Star skin pack available for free. Okay, I don't really care.
Free, I like that.
And then sort of discounted, downloadable, like it's a discounted rate to download some of these packs that we'd previously and actually erroneously conjectured would cost 600 points, which was the ratio that they should have attached at. And they're going to cost 300 points outside of the window and just 100 points within the window. It's sort of, I'm taking this as an acknowledgement on Q and Microsoft's part that maybe the way they handled Lumina's Live was not the best way, and this is sort of an apology.
So are microtransactions getting a little better?
This is a fine way to do it, where I think that only Xbox Live Gold users are getting the free stuff. Fine. You know what? Fuck you, Silver users. You shouldn't have the free shit anyway. Pay for it, and there should be reasons to pay for it, which is one of the things that Microsoft should actually continue to develop in this year going forward, is reasons to be a Gold subscriber. Reasons.
You mean like your Gold Club card?
Well, I don't have one, or an Amex Black yet. Half-Life 2 Orange. This is the packaging for the Half-Life 2 SKU that's coming to the consoles. You just kind of licked your lips when you were looking at me, John. What's
the name to you? Sorry.
Wow.
Wow, that was such a look of disappointment that came across his eyes, too. Did you see that? Luke was like, oh.
He was rubbing my leg out.
The package that we previously reported on being Half-Life 2 coming to consoles, the next-gen consoles, Team Fortress 2 and Portal, it's going to be branded as Half-Life 2 Orange, and then Half-Life 2 Black is the PC version.
And you're all over Orange.
Orange is probably the best bargain in gaming this year.
I don't understand why they're doing that. Why they're bundling it all together in one package.
Because they actually
it's Half-Life 2 and Episode 1.
Let me explain that to you.
Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, Team Fortress, Portal. I mean, $60 is day one.
I have a question,
purchase.
Luke. Is it true that Valve is doing the 360 version but not the PS3 version?
I don't know that. Is that what you heard?
That's what I heard.
Let me explain, John. Episodic gaming doesn't work.
No, I'm not talking about the episodic stuff. I'm talking why bundle, at least two of those games which could stand alone. Why shove them all on a disc?
It's exactly what Tom Mustaine talked about in that interview that I wrote about. I talked to Tom Mustaine over the Christmas break. You know, the guy who did Sin Episodes was like the head of Ritual and has now moved on to working with the cyber whatever, the CPL. And he mentioned the same thing, that it doesn't work because people want to see this extensive amount of content they're not ready to buy in small chunks. And I disagree with him. I think the problem, as we've talked about before,
that's already my question, though.
Why are they doing? You said why are they doing so much together? Because they make
too much.
Team Fortress 2 could stand alone. So why
as a $40 game?
Yeah.
But the thing is, Team Fortress 2 wouldn't have much. I think part of the reason why they're going to do it is because Team Fortress 2 isn't going to have a whole lot of reach with console gamers. Otherwise,
couldn't they just sell Half-Life 2 with the 1 and 2 episodes and then sell those other two games as download games?
That was the point Tom made. You need to make this package that's so much stuff that you can't resist it. You walk in and you look at it and go, "Holy shit! I have to buy this."
There's no precedent for that on consoles. Console gamers aren't used to getting 5 games and they buy a new game.
Well, this would be an interesting space for Valve to potentially innovate in the way console games are packaged.
That's true.
Like, no one should turn their nose up at this. If the port of Half-Life 2 is every bit as good as it should be on the 360 and PS3,
John and I,
this is something that you
I think it's
will not
we think
want
it's
to
awesome.
miss.
we're not complaining.
This is EA, the people who were just charging us for cheats.
Yeah, exactly. This is totally
Now they're giving us everything for free.
Yeah, this is totally
I talked to Chip Lang after the thing at CES. He goes, you know what we realized is that, people don't like paying for shit they already own. I'm like, really?
Wow. Did you look
Shocker.
at the sky is blue?
Did they hire like a team to research that?
Yeah, they hired a team
Discover that?
of people with common sense, and their response was, let's put 5 perfectly good games together on one disc.
Actually.
In all fairness, think about the amount of disappointment there must have been over Counter-Strike for Xbox, because that did not at all meet.
There was
I thought that game was going to be really good, and it was dog
not
shit.
so much.
It was awful.
So I think that definitely plays into the Team Fortress angle.
Well, I think that it's interesting that one of the things you're missing from this deluxe pack is you're missing something like Counter-Strike Source, and it to me just now sitting here thinking, however many bourbons in, where is Counter-Strike Source? Is this? I mean,
We exclusive.
I think, speaking of people
That would
throwing
be-
up in
that'd
their
be-
mouth a little bit, I think Gabe Newell just went.
That was
"Ooh."
actually
my mom just threw
I
up
was
in
gonna
my
say,
mouth.
that's for one of my listeners who for 3 years he's been saying like, wouldn't it be awesome if Nintendo got Counter-Strike as a pack-in? I'm like, no, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
That's the most retarded example of did Kyle Orland make that business?
Oh, it may have been the ombudsman who made that suggestion.
Right after he went to work for Disney.
Switching gears, Neversoft. This is actually a bad job by me. Neversoft is now the new Guitar Hero maker.
Hey, did you read about that in the Quartermahan section of EGM?
Yeah, well, and I mean the 80s edition of Guitar Hero, you guys reported on way back in the Guitar Hero cover. And
That's
it's
not
like
confirmed yet, though, right?
Not so much,
well,
but it's real.
Bethesda only just confirmed Shivering Isles, so it's like one of those.
Yeah, one of
situations.
those, yeah.
One of those. Crackdown, the game that
You get a Halo 3 with that, right?
yeah, you can. Yeah, Crackdown, the game that you can play the Halo 3 beta with, but that Crackdown is actually a very, very good game.
I've seen.
Are you sure it's Crackdown? It might be more like Cracker Jack with the
No.
new pack-in toy surprise. Halo 3, the demo.
Okay, but I'll say, I've seen the EGM scores, and it's pretty good.
Crackdown, very good.
It scored well in EGM. You were on one of the
I was
reviews.
one of the reviewers.
It's I've played a lot of it. I stopped because I want to play through it at retail. I will be playing through it at retail.
Hey, the
it's
peanut-
a total riot.
The peanuts and popcorn are good, but you keep the toy for forever.
Actually, you'll keep the toy until Bungie and
Until they
Microsoft
turn it
off.
off.
That's right.
Wah, wah. But that'll be after you've paid $6 for Crackdown. And that demo, which was supposed to come out this week, because the whole idea of the season premiere of the 1UP show is going to have Crackdown on it because you kids at home would be able to relate to it because you'd be playing the demo. I'm sorry, you don't get to play it for a while.
Was it the co-op stuff that made it get pushed back?
There were some issues
There's
that,
some approval thing. The code's done. It's just going through that Microsoft nonsense.
but it's not ready yet. We talked about it way early in the show. This French dude totally jibbed the system and leveled to 70 in 28 hours with the help of roughly 40 other people by tap leveling. But I mean, dude's still at level 70, and for the rest of the month, he will be masturbating furiously alone in his bedroom because he doesn't need to play World of Warcraft. 'Cause his friends haven't hit 70 yet.
You know what, Luke? I bet he had so much fun.
It's this French guy who was like, I'd like to thank my guild, Millennium. I'm very pleased with the progress that we made.
Why I gotta hate French people?
Dude, I like French people. They have a 35-hour work week. I'm thinking about a move. Console World of
Wait a minute. Did we just find out Luke Smith's new place? Joe France.
Jus France, Luke Smith confirmed. Console World of Warcraft, unlikely, which we've talked about a ton.
Do they not?
We went through a phase last year.
We went
of,
through
being
a whole
obsessed with it.
We were thinking that and I believe I was a detractor the whole time. I don't know. I'll have to listen to the tape. Skip's nodding yes.
Was Blizzard's official comment, we have enough money?
Blizzard's official comment was, we actually, we're not interested in making any more money. We're content with the shit fuck ton of cash we make every month right now, and we're working on other things like StarCraft 2 2008.
Look, all I can tell you is
Diablo 3 2009.
all I can tell you is after reading the chat windows in the new Draenei area, which is like the new Barons chat, the last thing Draenei area, new Barons chat, the last thing I want to do is hear these kids on Xbox Live. Oh my God,
You don't want
kill
to.
it.
Yeah. The official quote on console World of Warcraft unlikely came from Jonathan LeCraft. Here's the quote: "You really do need a keyboard to play WoW. Who said that all along.
You know what? You can plug one of those into the PlayStation 3.
Luke, I know all about this stuff.
I've seen some mods.
Let's talk about all the mods I have to do to cheat at World of Warcraft as well.
Look at me, I'm Luke. I'm the Scarab Lord. I have 120 days played.
Look at me, I haven't started playing Burning Crusade yet.
I've seen some mods where people have hooked up WoW to their Wii. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that's got to be pretty easy to PvP against. Honestly, it's not something we're looking at right now.
I'm not sure if I still have it or not.
Wow, really bad job organizing by me. Gabe Newell, one of those Valve guys.
What the fuck?
It's, it's just...
Should we reshuffle your pile of news?
I gotta be honest, I didn't really look through these when I printed them. I thought I printed
Shane's staring at the ceiling now like, what the fuck?
Well, he's got to tune out for this part because Gabe Newell says,
I don't want to.
Studio
Are you
head-
ready? Hang with hushed silence while you quote him.
I got to tune out because I don't want to. I don't want to make any obvious jokes about Gabe Newell. It's just too mean.
You ready?
The PS3 is a total disaster. The exact quote: "The PS3 is a total disaster on so many levels. I think it's really clear Sony lost track of what customers and what developers wanted. I'd say even at this late date, they should just cancel it and do a do-over. Just say this was a horrible disaster, and we're sorry, and we're going to stop selling this and stop trying to convince people to develop for it." Gabe Newell goes on to talk about how he's really into developing on the Wii because the 5-volt tech's really easy to program for. It's about as old as the Half-Life 2 engine.
You know what else he's in?
No, don't. My joke was too good. EA in Bizarre.
That's just you declaring it good negates it from being good.
It's best that I don't make the joke, actually.
EA.
No, go ahead. No. After all that.
No, never mind.
You gonna do a personal attack?
Yeah, it's.
We don't shoot.
I won't make the buffet joke I was going to make.
I think you just did. Brilliant. Gabe, you're welcome to come on and just wail
sit on Shane.
Please, no. God.
Skip's face is ready. Looks like he's gonna pass out. EA and Bizarre are working on an Xbox Live Arcade title called Boom Boom Rocket.
It sounds like Fantavision.
Here's the thing about this.
You know what I thought it was when I first read it? I thought they'd redone Choo Choo Rocket.
Yes.
We want that.
The game is actually one of the things that people have been reporting is that this is a game built from the ground up by Bizarre, who are the guys who made the Geometry Wars game.
Best game on 360.
Well,
and Project Gotham.
But let's talk about what what people care about.
Yeah.
But the Bizarre Creations guys are not the guys who sort of brain trusted Boom Boom Rockets. That's actually the Pogo team. Pogo developed this game and took this game to EA, and then EA sort of assigned it out to the Bizarre guys to make. And the Bizarre guys are actually, in addition to doing this game, they're working on the new Geometry Wars, which will be out before the summer.
But this is pretty important because this is EA's first Xbox Live Arcade game.
Yeah, this is their. And so you're seeing these third-party publishers sort of moving in that direction. To switch gears, we don't talk about Nintendo enough. Some people say during the news.
I agree.
So we have a story about how Nintendo lost the memo and moved Christmas to January because there will be Wii's available this weekend.
Again, what's with this whole thing of there'll be Wii's available on the weekend?
Well, it's sort of it's like constantly regenerating that. Like, ooh, I should go wait in line. And it's like it's so hard to get.
The question is the zeitgeist still there now that moms aren't trying to get this for little Billy for Christmas? Are people still going to line up for Wii?
It took Shane a year to work Zeitgeist into the show.
And it's done.
And it's done.
It feels good, doesn't it?
It does. It felt good.
So other stuff that we got.
He looks flummoxed by that.
I wasn't trying to work.
Zeitgeist is a bit of a wanky word.
No. Why?
It is.
It's German.
I'm German.
I got some more stuff. The dude who made the documentary, I believe it's from 1996, Project Grizzly. He's got a really hard to say name. I don't remember how to say it, and I don't have the notes in front of me. But he actually made a working, I guess you can call it a Spartan suit that he's codenamed the Trojan.
Bet it gets him a lot of chicks.
That's an unfortunate name.
Yeah, cover up. It's basically a military design costume that's a combination of hybrid plastics and ballistic foam. If you're like a MythBusters fan,
sounds like it's 99% impenetrable.
Ballistic. It's 99.9, I guess.
Does it have a button where you can call his mom to come pick him up?
No, but it does have actually built into the helmet. It does have built into the helmet.
It was stolen from Triumph, the insult company.
It has a. Oh God, what was that in reference to? Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future?
Star Wars line. Anyway, pray continue.
In the helmet, some of the stuff that he's added into the suit, where the clock for the suit is in the codpiece, which seems a little bit weird. I don't know.
Dude, is this guy cameo?
I don't know what happens in the morning. Really, it's probably a little
not a lot. I bet.
But the helmet for the suit
gets snooze an awful lot.
the helmet for the suit.
Luke, you're losing it, dude.
It tends to take longer then, though. It's kind of a chore, really. The helmet for the suit actually has like the equivalent of a feeding tube that distributes water to you, and has an infrared scope in the helmet for sighting things in case you're a sniper.
Luke, we think your suit is cool. Okay, don't worry about it.
Also, in the suit, in the wrist area, is a transponder that can be consumed in case you're captured by enemy foes. The creator of the suit hopes that the suit will be able to be equipped by soldiers in both Afghanistan, Canadian soldiers in Afghanistan, and U.S. soldiers in Iraq. The suit will cost roughly $2,000 to make, which is, I mean, for a piece of military hardware, that's not terrible, right? It's about what a PS3 costs to make. Warhawk.
I was saying that sounds better than Bush's plan for Iraq right now.
Yeah, we are going to win.
We're going to dress up like video game characters. And
well, I was arguing with a friend. They were saying that the joints in the suit, the major joints, are exposed. So, I mean, a well-trained Al-Qaeda soldier could really shoot, elbows and knees.
So they have the guys in the Spartan suits, but they're going to send the guys in the Mario and Pac-Man costumes and stuff in first to distract the enemy.
Yeah. Yup. Well, what are you going to do if you're a terrorist and you're looking at like fucking 8 Spartan soldiers walking at you? You're going to be like, it's time to get the fuck out of here.
From Halo.
Yeah. Halo's it's a really big game in Iraq.
They're still playing on PS2s. Remember, those are coming to emerging countries.
Exactly. Warhawk, contrary to a series of rumors that we heard like way back in December.
That project has been troubled for a while.
It is a plagued project. It's like a...
Did Jaffe tell you about this? Because isn't he got something to do with this?
No, well, yeah, it's part... Well, Jaffe sort of does, but this forum thread reemerged the day that we left, so we didn't get to see it while we were there. But the game's apparently not canceled, and they're going to be showing it to the media soon.
Yeah, the troubled part of that game was when they let someone convince them that, oh, by the way, we need to add on-foot parts to it.
There is a rumor that persists that this game may end up on the download initiative.
Is that a failure, or is that a way to sort of,
It's cutting your losses, maybe.
It'll be one hell of a big download initiative if it is.
That's a good segue, Garnet.
Doesn't that imply that the download thing is actually kind of the dunce zone for PS3? You don't get to...
The canceled Gran Turismo HD ended up there and made 300,000 people very happy.
Well, Shane has talked about the download initiative a lot with PlayStation Network and sort of decried the Xbox One. If I recall, Skip, am I right in saying Shane's decried the 50 megabyte...
That 50 megabyte limit sucks ass.
Yeah, it does suck ass. And you know what? OneUp can reveal, and did reveal today exclusively, that the 50 megabyte limit is no more.
So Microsoft agrees with Shane.
Microsoft agrees with Shane in a rare move.
What will I do with my core unit Xbox 360?
The Xbox, I'm going to tell you that too in just a second. The Xbox Live Arcade file size has been upped. Sources revealed to me 250 megabytes for a Live Arcade title.
He chest up just a little bit when he said that.
He loves revealing situations.
He loves just revealing things in general.
With a 450 megabyte cap with approval from Microsoft. So, the problems that we have seen, and Castlevania is one of the first games that's going to sort of blow past this milestone, and GameSpot reported there was going to be a 96 megabyte download, and the demo wasn't going to be big enough to fit on the memory card. Well, Microsoft is unable to confirm either of these two things. The second thing that we've heard is that the memory card, which has been talked about since last E3, a 256 meg card is not actually the plan, as opposed to, I think it's even listed on EB Games right now. That memory card that's going to come out, the new memory card, is going to actually be 512 meg.
When does that come out?
Don't know. I think EB has the ship time is
April.
April.
Because you can buy a 512 meg like SD card or memory stick for like $20.
Sony recently announced an 8 gig mem stick Pro Duo.
Yeah, it's $300.
They talked about it at CES, $300.
But it's going to be
so there will be a way for core users to play these games.
But here's the thing, like, to be fair, like, realistically, your core user is probably not your Xbox Live user. It's probably a little different sect. It's probably not someone who's enjoying like playing Uno or playing any number of Xbox Live Arcade games. If you don't have a hard drive, that whole part of the the Xbox 360 experience is pretty fucking foreign to you. It's like when the Xbox 360 launches in China. I mean, it's not something you're equipped for and ready for and are dealing with. If you've bought a hard drive, at that point maybe you have, but then you've overpaid for the hard drive. That's your own fault. Gears of War was patched finally this week. Unfortunately, it wasn't patched with team matchmaking in mind, but what the patch did do was effectively break some certain weird VGA displays. I think it's the 5:4 ratio in VGA is goofed up, and we asked Microsoft for comment. They told us that they're looking into it. There's been a bunch of threads on the official Gears forums, and now Garnet came over to my desk today and told me that some of these users are now reporting that System Link Gears of War is no longer working, which is like, so you and your buddies System Linking in college isn't working? Like, why don't you just plug into the Ethernet and use Xbox Live?
LAN parties still exist, Luke.
Yeah, like LAN parties still exist, and lots of people are really troubled that they have a 64 megabyte Xbox 360 memory card. The last thing I want to close with is Final Fantasy 13 demo in 2007. Coming out, Square Enix confirmed with Dengeki, apparently. SCEA had no comment when we asked them for comment today about the potential of a Final Fantasy 13 demo. So
I think everything that you've seen in the game so far, from the trailer that came out, all the screenshots, are from the demo.
I don't know. I tell you what, I would not want to be in the Final Fantasy 13 team's shoes because they have a lot to live up to. People were following my threads about it so I'll just go ahead and finish here at the end by saying, if I had to pick a game of the year, or when I was picking my game of the year, it would definitely be Final Fantasy 12 without a question.
But you're an Xbot.
To give the Final
without a question, it would be Final Fantasy 12 by a landslide.
To give Final Fantasy 13 team some credit, they've had about 4 years to work on this game, so I think it's going to be pretty fucking good.
I'm just saying that's great, and I'm happy for that. I'm just saying that's a tough situation because Final Fantasy 12, for all of its troubled development, and we all know the stories about everything they went through, to have come through as solidly as it did, it's such a good experience. It's such a good game.
It's about an 8.5.
Oh, God, they're going to start fighting, and then they're going to fuck.
No, we're not.
And that's always the best part.
Oh. So, is that the end? Is that how we end?
That's how we end our year anniversary.
I'd like to thank
Shane and Garnet getting it on.
I'd like to thank all our loyal listeners.
Thanks for putting up with our bullshit for a year.
Absolutely. That is true. It is the One Up Your show, and the funny part about it is, besides the 7-Up joke, the point of yours is that it is you guys who listen to it that make the show. I mean, we're just here. We're listening to what you guys like and talking about it and
searching message boards for our name.
Googling Luke Smith in quotation marks.
I'm number one.
So until next week.
Wait. Retro, right? Oh, yeah. I heard.
What are they working on?
Before we get the fuck out of here,
that's something new, right?
I heard that Retro, they're working on Metroid Prime 3 Corruption right now.
But I heard they have another project too.
I heard that it's an RPG and it's not going to come to a Nintendo console. Oh. Retro, I heard it there because they're actually a
6-page thread confirmed.
They're
an independent developer, right?
And it's not going to appear on an Nintendo platform.
I believe
it might not appear on Sony either.
Didn't Nintendo purchase them last year? I think Nintendo quietly purchased Retro last year. We'll have to do some research.
Yeah, we'll have to dig. We'll have to get shovels. Yeah. Big ones. Because the message board user pointed me to that little anonymous tip. I like you guys.
That was good for the message boards.
Yeah, they dug hard.
That would be boards.oneup.com, the place to reach us.
You love us. You hate us. You'd love to hate us.
Give us some feedback on this show and what you want to see the rest of the year. Well, until next week, we're Ghost.